Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales. Chapter 5498. Kang Xinmu followed behind. When he saw the look in the Tuoba royal elder's eyes, he felt that he was up to no good. Hearing the words of the Tuoba royal elder, Su Zhiyu's brows furrowed slightly. She was obviously displeased. But she did not say anything. After all, she was only taking a look and observing this trip. She was only interested in Kang Xinmu's performance. As for the rest, she was not very interested. She would leave these matters to Su'er to settle. Tuoba Motien, you old fart, why aren't you dead yet? When Su'er saw that the elder was actually teasing her younger sister, she could not help but say indifferently, let me warn you. Don't have any designs on my younger sister in the future. When this was said, Kang Xinmu was somewhat stunned. This old fellow was called Tuoba Motien, and he actually had designs on Su Zhiyu? This was too shameless, right? How old was this fellow? With the cultivation of a supreme expert, his lifespan was definitely very long. He looked so old, and he was already a few hundred years old, or even 1,000 years old. He actually had designs on Su Zhiyu. This was really too shameless. But very soon, Tuoba Motien's words made Kang Xinmu realize that he had misunderstood. The one who had designs on Su Zhiyu was indeed this elder, Tuoba Motien. But this elder did not say that he wanted to do anything to Su Zhiyu. Instead, Su'er, you seem to be in high spirits this year. You seem to have more confidence than in previous years. The elder, Tuoba Motien, chuckled and said, I'll tell you the truth. Just this year, my son has already broken through to the 7th level of the Supreme Expert. In another few years, he will become the Tuoba clan's clan head. In the past, you looked down on my son and felt that he could not shoulder great responsibilities. Now, how do you feel? The current him is not inferior to you, Su'er. No matter what, he is worthy of your younger sister, eldest young mistress Su Zhiyu, right? So he was speaking for his son. Kang Xinmu heaved a sigh of relief. He really thought that this old fellow had designs on Su Zhiyu. He got a huge shock, Supreme Expert, 7th level. This strength is already stronger than my master. Kang Xinmu thought. He was well aware of Emperor Shi's cultivation. He should be at the 6th level of the Supreme Dragon Realm. However, Emperor Shi's combat prowess was not weak. It was definitely not inferior to Su'er or Tuoba Motien's son. After all, Emperor Shi's divine dragon now had 9 layers of engravings on it. There were very few people who possessed such a heaven and earth saint grade item. Even in the entire Dragon God clan or the entire Demon God clan, there were no more than 100 of them. This was a super powerful item that could affect the balance of the entire race. Because of this, Kang Xinmu was able to obtain such a generous reward. Su'er, or even Tuoba Demonsky's son, would only be able to obtain a heaven and earth saint item of this level. A heaven and earth saint grade treasure with 10 layers of inscriptions had never appeared in this world before. Currently, Kang Xinmu knew that there was only one heaven and earth sacred object that surpassed the 9 layers of engravings, and that was his starry sky miniature world. Unfortunately, the progress of unsealing his starry sky pocket world was a little slow. Wanting to unseal the 9 layers of inscriptions would still require a very long period of time. From this, the top combat prowess of each race was more or less the same. Even if there was a slight disparity, the disparity would not be too great. Tuoba Zhenwu? When Su'er heard that elder Tuoba Demonsky's words, he laughed disdainfully and said, Tuoba Demon Sky, you are rather confident in your son. Why don't you let your son have a match with my younger sister after this ranking competition ends? Others might not know, but Su'er was very clear. His younger sister, Su Zhiyu, was already stronger than him. It was just that Su Zhiyu had always stood aloof from worldly affairs. If there was nothing too major, she basically would not display her strength. In reality, Su Jiyu had never encountered anything that made her display her full strength until now. Hence, outsiders did not know how her combat prowess was. When Tuoba Demon Sky heard that, he was rather surprised. "Yo, Su Bear, you are rather confident in your younger sister. However, I'm afraid that my son is too much of a bully. Bullying his future wife like this isn't too appropriate. Why don't we use this ranking competition's ranking as the wager? If your Su royal family can obtain first place, we will offer a sacred item with 9 layers of inscriptions. However, if our Tuoba clan obtains first place, then young lady Su Jiyu will marry into our Tuoba clan. How about that?" Tuoba Demon Sky seemed to be very confident in his Tuoba royal family's younger generation. "You have a Transcendent God Stage 6 Junior?" Su Shen swept a glance behind Tuoba Demon Sky and his expression instantly turned cold. A Transcending God Level 6 below the age of 30. This had finally broken the record of the Fiend God race Great World. "That's right. My grandson, Tuoba Shui." Tuoba Demon Sky was very pleased. "How about it, Su Heir? Do you want to back down? Up to you. Anyway, if you don't dare to agree, it's your Su royal family that will lose face. It's naturally impossible to back down." Su Heir's expression hardened. "However, using my younger sister's happiness as the wager is impossible, brother, agree to him." At this moment, Su Jiyu suddenly interjected. She revealed a gentle and beautiful smile. "If I'm not the wager, why would they take out a sacred item with 9 layers of inscriptions as the wager? A sacred item with 9 layers of inscriptions is quite precious. It's a waste not to take it." Hearing Su Jiyu's words, Su Heir was a little nervous. He glanced at Su Jiyu, lowered his voice, and asked, "Su Jiyu, do you know what you're saying? Once you agree, your fate will no longer be in your hands. Don't worry." Su Jiyu glanced at Kong Shinmu, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "I believe that we will definitely win this time." She knew Kong Shinmu's background. Moreover, she was the only one who knew Kong Shinmu's background. In fact, her understanding of Kong Shinmu's battle prowess was probably even more than Su Yiyu's. In terms of relationship, Su Yiyu was definitely closer to Kong Shinmu. However, Su Yiyu didn't pay much attention to Kong Shinmu's battle prowess. She only knew that Kong Shinmu was definitely stronger than her. She only wanted her cultivation to keep up with Kong Shinmu's, but she never thought that her battle prowess could keep up with Kong Shinmu's. Therefore, Su Jiyu was the one who had the most confidence in Kong Shinmu among this group of people. "Who is it that you believe in? Su Tianhao?" Su Heir frowned slightly. "No." Su Jiyu shook her head. "Kong Shinmu. I know his ability, more than any of you, so I believe in him." "That kid?" Su Heir frowned even more. He really didn't expect that his younger sister would trust Kong Shinmu so much. Chapter 5499. Seeing Su Heir and Su Jiyu whispering to each other, the elder Tuoba Matian smiled. He said, "Su Heir, how is it? Have you decided? Do you really not think highly of the juniors of your clan? Do you think that they are no match for my grandson, Tuoba Shui?" The moment he said this, the Tuoba royal family members behind him burst into laughter. Especially the 29-year-old young man, Tuoba Shui, who was laughing wildly and arrogantly. This person had sharp eyes and a tall figure. His eyes roamed over Su Jiyu, Su Yi, and Su Ye's bodies. Especially impudent. Although he knew that his father, Tuoba Zhenwu, was interested in Su Jiyu, he still impudently scanned Su Jiyu's body. From this, it could be seen that Tuoba Shui was used to being arrogant from a young age. Especially now, he had reached the 6th level of the Transcendent God Realm before the age of 30. This had broken the record of the Demon God Realm. This made him even more arrogant than before. Although it was not a qualitative change from the 5th level to the 6th level, it was still a big step forward. Under the same conditions, a Transcendent God level 6 would be around 50% stronger than a Transcendent God level 5. And this 50% was a huge chasm. If one was not truly talented, it was impossible to cross a realm and defeat an opponent. The three women saw the look in Tuoba Shue's eyes and felt extreme disgust. That look was too impudent. He had no respect for women at all. In his eyes, it was as though women were his accessories, his slaves. A 6th-level transcendent god before the age of 30 does indeed have the capital to be arrogant. But excessive arrogance is self-immolation. Su-er glanced at Tuoba Xiao and said indifferently, "Ah." As a junior, Tuoba Shue actually laughed and said loudly, "Clan head Su, since you know that I have the capital to be arrogant, then can't I be arrogant in front of you? In the future, I am destined to be a man who surpasses everyone. This demon god realm will eventually be unified by me." Tuoba Shue's impudent words were praised by the elder Tuoba Motian. "My grandson is right. Our Tuoba royal family needs this aura. We cannot learn from your father and be too low-key." Tuoba Motian laughed heartily. Tuoba Zhenwu had always kept a low profile. Although everyone knew that he liked Su Jiyu, he had never said anything disrespectful to Su Jiyu. Only this old man, Tuoba Motian, was extremely arrogant and disrespectful to Su Jiyu. "Then, grandfather, if I get first place in this ranking competition, will I be able to marry great-aunt Su Jiyu? If you don't want me to fight with father for that person. Grandson wants that Su-yi or Su-yi is also fine." Tuoba Shue suddenly said. "That won't do. These are two different bets." Tuoba Motian raised his brows. "Why not?" Su Jiyu suddenly said with a smile, "2 wagers. Then you can also take out 2 wagers. Isn't that enough? 2 heavenly saint items with 9 layers of engravings. Let's see if you're willing to do it." This sentence was something that Tuoba Devil Sky, Tuoba Shue, and the others did not expect. This Su Jiyu was so confident. Seeing that they were a little stunned and hesitant, Su-er became very straightforward and said mockingly, "What my sister says is what I say. Why, 2 wagers, 2 heavenly saint items with 9 layers of engravings. Do you dare or not? Tuoba Shue, weren't you very arrogant earlier? Do you dare or not?" "Of course I dare." Tuoba Shue instantly shouted angrily. However, Tuoba Motian suppressed him. This old man still had some brains. He swept a glance at the 18 youths behind Su-er and Su Jiyu. He sized them up carefully. Everyone, including Kong Xinmu, was sized up by him. None of them were at the 6th level of the Transcendental God realm. Apart from cultivation, the other conditions of the younger generation of the various royal families were similar. Tuoba Shue was even equipped with an extremely powerful demon weapon that was forged with the entire Tuoba clan's strength. No matter how one thought about it, with the advantage of cultivation, Tuoba Shue would not lose to others. Su-er, the younger generation of the Su royal family, are the 18 youths behind you? There's no one else? Tuoba Motian first confirmed suspiciously. This old fellow was still very suspicious and appeared very cautious. If the Su royal family hid some powerful youths and waited until the day of the competition, it would not be fun. Tuoba Motian, why are you suddenly so lacking in confidence? Su-er laughed heartily. Since that's the case, I promise you that the ones participating in the competition are the 18 youths behind you. How about it, do you dare to agree to the 2 wagers? If you mean it, then of course I dare. Tuoba Motian narrowed his eyes. 2 wagers, 2 heavenly saint items with 9 layers of engravings. But if you lose, Su Jiyu will marry my son, and Su-yi will marry my grandson. Wager, established. When the two clans established such a wager, the younger generation of the Su royal family was stunned. Especially Su Tianhao's group. They never thought that clan leader Su Shen would actually agree to the other party and make such a wager. Once they lost, Su Zhiyu and Su Yi would be gone. Su Zhiyu was one of the four great beauties of the Fiend God clan, or even the leader. And Su Yi was a rising star of the younger generation. Especially after her cultivation rose in the past 2 years, she could be said to be the dream lover of countless people with both beauty and talent. If they lost, they would really let the two of them go to the Tuoba clan? That was too infuriating. Su Tianhao's expression did not look too good. From his point of view, Su Er's action was akin to roasting him on fire. He never thought that Su Zhiyu and Su Er would believe in Kang Xinmu. From his point of view, the strongest person on the Su royal family side was himself, Su Tianhao. After all, he had obtained the 14 Wings combat cultivation law. He had comprehended 70% of it in a month, which had nearly doubled his battle power. He believed that he was the strongest out of the 18 people from the Su dynasty who came out to battle this time. But on the Tuoba clan side, someone had broken through to the 6th level of the Transcendent God realm. He was not a commoner at the 6th level of the Transcendent God realm. He was definitely not a fake. Tuoba Shui must have cultivated a top-notch Transcendent God martial technique and possessed a top-notch Transcendent God weapon. If he really fought with Su Tianhao did not have the confidence to win. Therefore, he felt that it was too difficult for him. Chapter 5500. However, Su Tianhao did not say anything to object. From his point of view, this was the clan leader and Su Zhiyu's trust in him. I will definitely not disappoint the senior's expectations. Su Tianhao secretly cheered himself on. He gritted his teeth, his eyes revealing a hint of determination. At this moment, his eyes met with Tuoba Shui's. When Tuoba Shui saw him, he immediately felt that Su Tianhao was the strongest in the Su royal family. He had seen Su Tianhao before. In the youth hunt 3 years ago, he had defeated Su Tianhao. In this ranking competition, he was a level higher than Su Tianhao. How could he possibly lose? Thinking of this, Tuoba Shui bared his teeth and raised his middle finger at Su Tianhao. He actually looked down on Su Tianhao. He did not put Su Tianhao in his eyes at all. After all, he was a level higher than Su Tianhao. This level was already an insurmountable chasm. The 50% difference in basic strength was something that could not be made up for under similar conditions. At this moment, Tuoba Shui had fought with many 7th and 8th level transcending gods. In the end, he won. This also proved that Tuoba Shui was indeed strong and had the qualifications to be arrogant. Su Yu, this idiot. Tuoba Shui laughed coldly to himself. He felt that placing his hopes on Su Tianhao was the stupidest decision. From the looks of it, he was about to have a beautiful little wife. Su Yi. However, the elder Tuoba Matian still frowned, feeling that something was wrong. He carefully observed Su Tianhao, lowered his voice, and quietly reminded his grandson, "Be careful of this Su Tianhao. This time, the descendants of the Su royal family are not the same as in the past. It is very likely that they have unearthed some deeper level of comprehension. Be careful." Yes. Hearing his grandfather's words, the young Tuoba Shui nodded his head cautiously. This person looked arrogant and brainless, but in reality, he was bold and careful. He was still very cautious in the details. Otherwise, he would not have lived until now. "Aunt, why are you using us as stakes? It feels so strange." After the two clans separated, Su Yi went to find Su Zhiyu unhappily. She ran to Su Zhiyu's side, hugged her arm, and shook it. "You still don't trust your man?" Su Zhiyu smiled and patted Su Yi's head. "Don't worry, he's more powerful than you think." That Tuoba Shui is no match for Kang Xinmu. I believe in him, it's just that, it feels a little weird. Su Yi was a little depressed. Alright. Isn't anti-fighting for benefits for you? Su Zhiyu covered her mouth and chuckled. When the time comes, as long as you win, I'll give you one of the 9 engraved heaven and earth saint items directly for your safekeeping and use. What do you think? Really? Hearing this, Su Yi immediately beamed with joy. 9 layers of engravings of the heavenly saint grade. This was not something to be trifled with. If its full power was unleashed, it would be enough to destroy the entire Su royal family's castle. Even a powerhouse like Su heir had to treat him with extreme caution. In fact, it was almost impossible to defend against it if one didn't have a heaven and earth saint artifact of the same level. Then when the time comes, I want to unlock all 9 layers of seals. Su Yi pursed her lips and smiled. Auntie, it's a promise. You can't go back on your word. Don't worry. Su Zhiyu looked at her adorable appearance and could not help but laugh. Unlocking the 9 layers of seals was very difficult for Kang Xinmu, but for the Su royal family, it was not something impossible. Although it required a large amount of cultivation resources, the 9 layers of seals of the heavenly saint grade was definitely worth unlocking. If the Su royal family had 2 more 9 layers of seals of the heavenly saint grade, then the Su royal family would be even more secure in their throne as the number 1 clan of the Fiend God clan. As for Kang Xinmu, he was also a little depressed. He did not expect Su Zhiyu to trust him so much. To be honest, although he had cultivated the 6 supreme Fiend God martial skills to the extreme saint realm, he had no actual combat experience in using them under any circumstances. Therefore, he did not know what the situation would be like in battle. In his opinion, the aura of the Transcendent God Stage 6 Tuoba Shui was very strong, stronger than any opponent he had encountered before. This made him not confident of winning. Of course, that was talking about now. In another 2 days, when the ranking competition was halfway through, his cultivation would be able to break through to the Transcendent God Stage 3. At that time, he would be confident of facing Tuoba Shui. Although Kang Xinmu had many trump cards, so did Tuoba Shui. In the ranking competition, the only rule was that one was not allowed to bring in or use the power of a heavenly saint grade item. But this year, another rule was added, and this rule was for Kang Xinmu. The additional rule was that one was only allowed to use the inherited power of the Fiend God clan. In the history of the Fiend God clan, there had never been someone like Kang Xinmu in the great world of the Fiend God clan, who had 2 inherited powers at the same time. Therefore, for the sake of fairness, Kang Xinmu was not allowed to use any of the inherited power of the Dragon God clan in this ranking competition. He could only use the inherited power of the Fiend God clan. Under this rule, people subconsciously ignored the existence of Kang Xinmu. After all, everyone knew that this person was the disciple of Emperor Shi. Who would not investigate the 18 people from the Su royal family participating in the competition? The personal disciple of Emperor Shi actually had the dual cultivation inheritance of the Fiend God clan. This undoubtedly surprised many people. But no matter what, they believed that Kang Xinmu, who had always focused on the inheritance of the Dragon God clan, could not be too strong in the aspect of the Fiend God clan. After all, the strength of an inheritance did not only depend on one's cultivation, but also on the accompanying martial techniques, battle weapons, and the proficiency in using the various powers. Therefore, no one put Kang Xinmu on the threat list. The most important thing for the Su royal family this time was that everyone felt that the aura of the juniors of the Su royal family seemed to be different. Stronger than before. More confident. This kind of performance, when spread by Tuoba Motian, made many people believe that he had obtained more inheritance comprehension. This made many tribes feel a new threat. The Su royal family's inheritance comprehension of the Fiend God clan had not improved for a long time. All along, they could only unleash the battle power of 10 wings. In the last 1 or 2 years, some of them began to display the super strong battle power of 12 wings. This was already a huge breakthrough. Chapter 5501. Unfortunately, everyone was wrong. This time, the trump card of the Su royal family was not the popularization of the 12-winged combat cultivation law. Similarly, it was not the popularization of the 14-winged combat cultivation law. After all, only Su Yi and Su Yi had truly comprehended the 14-winged combat cultivation law. As for the 2 girls, because their cultivation levels were slightly lower than others, they could not truly become the trump card of the Su royal family. Although Su Tianhao had comprehended 70% of the 14-winged combat cultivation law, his absolute battle power was still not strong enough. After all, he was not a true royal family. He was only a descendant of an expert with another surname. Therefore, the resources he received were not the best. Regardless of whether it was his transcendent divine weapon or transcendent divine demon martial technique, they were not the best. The other youths were about the same. It would be extremely difficult to obtain the first place in the ranking competition with this. No one would have thought that the trump card of the Su royal family would actually be Kong Xinmu. Ashes Gladiator Arena, in the center of the Demon City. In this Ashes Gladiator Arena, the 24 demon god clans that were participating in this ranking competition had finally gathered. All along, the Su royal family, the Tuoba royal family, and the Litian royal family were the hottest contenders for the top 3 spots. For hundreds of years, the first place was basically born from one of the 3 royal families. The other 2 royal families were second and third place. During this period, there were occasionally other clans that rose up, but there were not many of them. Therefore, the truly powerful clans of the 24 demon god clans were still the 3 royal families. Kong Xinmu followed Su Yu and Su Zhiyu to the Ashes Gladiator Arena along with the other younger generation of the Su royal family. The entire arena was divided into 24 regions. Every clan and royal family occupied an area. Each of the 24 tribes had at least one paragon expert, who was a supreme expert. The 7th level. Otherwise, they would not be qualified to participate in this ranking competition. However, although some clans had an absolute expert, their descendants were too few in number. As a result, they could not obtain any good results in the ranking competition. Precisely because of this, the Su royal family would absorb some experts with another surname and change their surname to Su. This way, it was beneficial to both sides. It was easier for the Su royal family to develop, and their overall strength was stronger. As for those experts who changed their surnames, they also provided a more stable cultivation environment and security for their juniors. Only today did the Su royal family reach its current scale. Each clan would send 18 young disciples to participate in the ranking competition. A few royal tribes that were in dire straits could not even gather 18 transcendent gods from the younger generation. They only brought 10 or so juniors over. If he was not at the transcendent grade, it would be embarrassing to bring him over. He could only bring a smaller number of people. The 24 members of the royal family of the demon god clan gathered together. 24 supreme experts sat in the Ashes Gladiator Arena. His imposing manner was incomparably awe-inspiring. Perhaps it was because they knew that Kong Xinmu, the disciple of Emperor Shi's divine dragon, would be participating this time, so these supreme cultivators were not as casual as they usually were. Right now, he seemed extremely serious, especially when he released an incomparably terrifying aura that enveloped the entire area. To be honest, Kong Xinmu was quite surprised. There were so many experts in the demon god clan. He had not seen many such experts when he was in the great world of the dragon gods. Only existences at the level of Emperor Shi's divine dragon and Moya could compare to these supreme experts of the demon god clan. In fact, among these supreme experts of the demon god clan, there were some existences whose auras were even stronger than Emperor Shi's divine dragon. As for Kang Xinmu, he did not study who these people were. In short, there was a delicate balance between the royal family of the demon god clan. As Kang Xinmu imparted the 16-winged combat cultivation rules to the Su royal family, this balance would gradually be broken. After Su Jiu completely cultivated and comprehended it, it would not break this balance. After all, she usually did not participate in the disputes with the other demon god clan royal family. But when Su Jiu imparted the 16-winged combat cultivation rules to others, this balance would begin to be broken. As for this ranking competition, with Kang Xinmu's participation, Kang Xinmu was sure that he would be in the top 3. He looked around. There were about a dozen people at Su Tianhao's level in the audience. He was even a little weaker than Su Tianhao. After all, Su Tianhao's current strength was a little stronger than it seemed on the surface. He had comprehended 70% of the 16-wing combat cultivation law, which had nearly doubled his combat strength. And Kang Xinmu was very sure that if he fought against Su Tianhao, he would definitely win. So Kang Xinmu only had a limited number of opponents. Have you heard that the Su royal family and the Tuoba royal family have 2 bets? Of course I've heard. That old man Tuoba Motian told everyone he met, as if he's afraid that people don't know about their bet. Is he afraid that the Su royal family will go back on their word if they lose? This time, the Tuoba royal family is very strong. That old man's grandson, Tuoba Shui, has already reached Transcendental God level 6. His strength is quite terrifying. Among the younger generation, those who can reach Transcendental God level 5 are few. Those who can reach Transcendental God level 6 are the first since ancient times. Very strong. Looks like this year's Tuoba royal family will shine in this ranking competition. Around the arena, many royal families and clans began to discuss in secret. The main focus was on the 2 great royal families, the Tuoba royal family and the Su royal family. The bet between these 2 clans affected the minds of countless people. No matter which side won or lost, it was very likely to affect the overall situation of the demon god race in the future. Once Su Jiu and Su Yi married into the Tuoba royal family, it meant that the 2 great royal families of the Tuoba royal family and the Su royal family had begun a marriage alliance. No matter how bad the relationship between the 2 clans was before, after that, they would definitely begin to gradually ease up, and even unite in some aspects. And if the Tuoba royal family lost, the Su royal family would have 2 more 9 engraved heaven and earth sacred items. This was a huge boost to the overall strength of the Su royal family, and it would affect the overall strength ranking of the various royal families of the demon god race. Right now, this ranking competition was only a ranking competition for the younger generation. It did not represent the true strength of the various royal families. This ranking competition only determined the ownership of certain resources in the demon god race great world for the next 3 years. It did not represent who was stronger or weaker among the 24 royal families. For example, Kang Xinmu even felt that there was an existence that seemed to be stronger than Emperor Shi's divine dragon. It was the patriarch of a royal family that was in decline. This royal family had a small population and was destined to not get a good ranking in this ranking competition. But their patriarch was very strong. Chapter 5502. When the 24 clans had gathered, the scene in the Ashes Coliseum was not chaotic. After all, there were no miscellaneous spectators, so there were not many people. In total, there were only about 400 to 500 people. The Ashes Coliseum was very spacious. Otherwise, it would not have been able to accommodate the supreme god-level fiend celestial inheritors to fight in it. Kang Xinmu was ready to fight. He continued to observe the people in the Ashes arena, observing all the opponents of the younger generation of the various clans and clans. Although some of the opponents did not look strong, he still paid attention to them. The result of the ranking competition was very important, and he could not afford to fail miserably. In any case, this was the first time Kang Xinmu was going to fight as the Fiend Celestial Inheritor. The first stage of the ranking competition is to challenge the Celestial Fiend Celestial Puppet. The Celestial Fiend Celestial Puppet was a huge puppet statue with the strength of a peak supreme god. It was much stronger than the 5th or 6th stage of the Transcendent God level. They were basically not on the same level. Therefore, it was impossible for the younger generation to challenge the puppet. Instead, all the younger generation of a clan would team up to challenge the puppet. To ensure fairness, only 9 people could challenge the puppet at once. Only when they succeeded in the challenge would they be qualified to enter the next round of the ranking competition. The condition to succeed in the challenge was not to defeat the puppet. Instead, they had to work together to block the puppet for more than 10 moves. Of course, if they could block more than 10 moves, it would be helpful for them in the next round of the competition. The more Celestial Fiend Puppet's attacks were blocked, and the longer they lasted, the more favorable treatment they would get in the next round. Because, in the next round, they would be matched with the opponent who lasted the longest and the shortest amount of time. And so on. If they could last long enough, they would be able to meet the weakest opponent. Of course, this did not matter to Kang Xinmu. After all, his goal was to be the champion. Therefore, he would not ignore any opponent, and he would defeat every one of them. 9 people working together to block the puppet. For me now, it's still relatively easy for me to block 10 moves from a peak supreme god. Kang Xinmu calculated in his heart. In Ash's arena, the 50,000 feet tall celestial fiend puppet had already appeared, standing tall and proud. He released a terrifying aura of a powerhouse. Waves of fiend chi kept spreading into the surroundings. There were many fiend god clans' fiend martial techniques and arrays in the puppet's body. He could use all kinds of powerful supreme fiend god martial skills. We'll draw lots. The Taba clan will send someone first. Just now, the leaders of the major clans had already sent people to draw lots. The Tuoba clan was first, the Su clan was 5th, and the other strongest clan, the Li Tian clan, was second from the bottom. The Taba clan had a total of 18 participants, so they had to be divided into 2 clans. Let me go first. The 6th tier transcendent god genius, Tuoba Shui, was the first to stand up. Together with the 8 people who had been assigned, they flew toward the celestial fiend puppets. When they reached the battlefield, they transformed into the bodies of the demon gods. Chaotic heavenly fire demon god. For a moment, the temperature of the entire Ashes arena rose, making everyone feel like they were in a furnace. The chaotic heavenly fire fiend god's fleshly body was as hot as lava, and it could even melt steel. The 9 younger generation members of the chaotic heavenly fire fiend god's legacy appeared in the center of the arena, facing the peak supreme god-level celestial fiend puppet. Apart from Tuoba Shui, who was a 6th tier transcendent god, there was 1 5th tier, 3 4th tier, and the rest were all 3rd tier. This lineup was quite powerful. Of course, for the Taba clan, the difference in strength between the 2 groups of 18 people was not very big. Otherwise, their clan's total score would not increase. Get ready, begin. As the controller of the celestial fiend puppet, a supreme expert, gave the order, the peak supreme god-level celestial fiend puppet finally made its move. For a moment, the fiend chi in the arena surged, bringing with it a terrifying aura. This was a terrifying supreme fiend god martial skill. It was a wave of fiend chi that kept erupting in the surroundings, each wave stronger than the last. Even the first wave of attack was enough to push Tuoba Shui back and seriously injure him. However, this was a checkpoint where the 9 of them worked together. Activate the defensive formation. The 9 of them worked together to set up a defensive formation of the Fiend God clan. Although it was called a formation, it was not really a formation. It was just the defensive demonic martial skills of the 9 of them being used at the same time. The first wave was blocked. The Fiend Chi formed a barrier, and the 9 people's Fiend Chi barriers fused together, forming a scene that looked like a natural waterfall. Then, the second wave came at the fastest speed possible, giving them almost no time to react. Boom! 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 Wave after wave of attacks came, and each wave was fiercer than the last. Tuoba Shui led his men to defend, fighting steadily, holding their ground, and constantly using the supreme god-level defensive demonic martial skills. Kang Xinmu was constantly observing everyone's movements. The supreme divine demon martial skills that each of them had used were not their strongest moves. But no matter what, the moves that they had used now would definitely be used in the duel later. It was naturally beneficial to observe them now. Tuoba Shui is indeed very strong. He did not use his demonic weapon, nor did he use the supreme god-level defensive demonic martial skill of the ultimate saint realm, but the defense of his defensive demonic martial skill is already much stronger than the others. This is because he is at the 6th level of the supreme god realm. As for the others, they were not particularly strong, but they could not be ignored. At least, for Kang Xinmu, he felt that they could not be ignored. After all, the other party had not shown his full strength. Just the defensive ability that he had shown was already no weaker than some of the top geniuses of the holy lands of the dragon gods. It was just that Tuoba Shui was the most dazzling, so in comparison, the others were somewhat dull. But Kang Xinmu would not underestimate anyone. The third wave of attacks was blocked. Then came the 4th wave, the 5th wave, the 10th wave. Soon, Tuoba Shui and his men had blocked the 10th wave of attacks, which meant that they had successfully entered the second round. Generally speaking, the first wave of attacks from the fiend puppets was enough to pass. The only difference was how many waves they could resist, which meant what kind of opponent they would encounter in the second round. The longer he resisted, the shorter the duration of his opponent's resistance. In that case, it would be easier for them to advance to the next round. After all, there were 2 rankings in this ranking competition. Chapter 5503. The overall ranking was based on the total points of all the younger generation participating in the competition. According to the number of points, the amount of resources that each clan and royal family could control would be determined. These 24 royal clans all had their own headquarters. For example, the Su clan's Su clan castle was located in an area that was quite rich in resources. If the Su clan's overall points were high enough, then the area they controlled would extend outwards. A radius of 3,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 10,000 miles. Both were possible. According to this rule, when the 24 royal clans covered more than half of the demon god Great World, the remaining areas that were not divided would be allocated according to the individual rankings. According to the ranking, the clan in first place would have the priority to choose an area with a radius of 1,000 miles, and all the resources within that area would belong to them. This meant that the higher the overall ranking, the greater the advantage. But the higher the individual ranking, the more precious resources they could choose outside of the 24 royal clans. It should be known that many precious resources were very far away from the territories of the 24 royal clans. In particular, there was a demon spring abyss. That was a super abyss that constantly surged with demonic energy. It was an extremely remote place in the demon god race. In 3 years, the energy of the magic marks that emerged from the abyss of a demon spring was enough for a royal family to cultivate at least 2 supreme experts. This was the greatest advantage of being in first place. Of course, the second and third places could also choose relatively good resources. In short, whether it was the overall ranking or the individual ranking, they could not be ignored. And the overall ranking depended on the younger generation participating in the competition. If they wanted everyone to get a good result, they would have to withstand more waves of attacks in the first round when they challenged the demonic god statue stage. If they resisted 10 attacks, each participant of the younger generation would get 1 point. Further up, for every 5 attacks they resisted, they would get 1 more point. Therefore, they would usually pay attention to the challenge of the demon god statue. They've already resisted 15 attacks. But they still look like they're doing it with ease. The 20th attack. Tuoba Shui had already used some of his true abilities. Kang Xinmu could feel that this person had secretly used his super god demon weapon. That super god demon weapon might not be a very powerful super god demon weapon, but it had already increased his defense by a few times. As the attacks from the celestial fiend puppets grew stronger and stronger, the defensive fiend martial skills used by each of them also grew stronger and stronger. They wouldn't bring out their full strength, but they wouldn't just go through the motions at this checkpoint. 20 moves, blocked. 25 moves, blocked. As the attacks of the celestial fiend puppets became more and more terrifying, it became more and more difficult for them to defend. After they had blocked 30 moves, Tuoba Shui was the first to speak. Stop. That's enough. There's no need to continue. Obviously, they still had the strength to continue. However, perhaps they felt that they couldn't withstand the 35th move, so there was no need for them to continue. In this round, Tuoba Shui and the other 8 members of the younger generation of the Tuoba clan each obtained 5 points. The overall score of the Taba clan was now 45 points. This meant that the Tuoba clan could control at least all the resources within a radius of 450 kilometers around their clan. Moreover, this was just the beginning. Let's continue. Tuoba Yun, lead the team well. Tuoba Yun was the second strongest member of the younger generation of the Tuoba clan. Aside from Tuoba Shui, Tuoba Yun was the strongest. His cultivation base was infinitely close to the 6th level of the Transcendent God realm, but he was still a little bit away from that final step. Now, Tuoba Yun was in charge of the second team of the Tuoba clan. The average strength of the team he led was about the same as the team led by Tuoba Shui, but the strength of the 9 members was more balanced, unlike the previous round, when Tuoba Shui alone could fight against 3 to 5 people. Soon, Tuoba Yun led the team into the arena. Defend. The first wave, begin. The celestial fiend puppets began to attack again. Wave after wave of attacks swept toward Tuoba Yun and the other 8 members like a storm of fiend energy, each stronger than the last. They also used their own defensive methods, forming a high wall of demonic aura. 10 moves. 20 moves. Soon, they reached the stage where they were having a hard time. Each of them began to use the abilities of their fiend weapons to activate the defensive battle patterns. 25 moves. 30 moves. In the end, they only managed to block 30 moves. In fact, it was obvious that Tuoba Yun's team was more stable than Tuoba Shui's team. Even after 30 moves, there were no serious problems. At this rate, they still had a chance of blocking 35 moves. But Tuoba Yun decided to end it. This meant that he was giving face to Tuoba Shui, so that Tuoba Shui would not lose to him in this aspect. This Tuoba Yun's strength is not bad. But he seems to be very protective of Tuoba Shui. Has he never thought of competing with Tuoba Shui for the first place? Kang Xinmu narrowed his eyes. Or could it be that Tuoba Shui's methods were too ruthless, and he would attack Tuoba Yun once he performed too well? It was hard to say. No matter what, the overall strength of the Tuoba royal family was already displayed clearly. They seemed to be a little stronger than the Tuoba royal family of the past, but not by much. Only Tuoba Shui was outstanding. Overall, there was not much difference from the previous years. Next, it was time for the other clans to enter the arena. Some clans could only withstand 25, or even 20 attacks from a celestial fiend puppet when 9 of them joined forces. There were even teams that chose to give up after withstanding 10 moves. These were the leaders who did not have very strong geniuses, and their average overall strength was relatively weak. If they insisted on defending against the puppets, they would most likely be defeated by them on the spot. In fact, every participant had some sort of feeling about whether or not they could withstand it. If they felt that they couldn't hold on any longer, they would retreat immediately. There was nothing shameful about it. After all, many people knew that the top 3 of the competition were almost all from the Sui dynasty, Tuoba dynasty, and Litian dynasty. However, there was one clan that caught Kang Xinmu's attention. That was the clan that had inherited the zero-degree demon god, the Bing royal clan. There was a girl in the younger generation, and her name seemed to be Ice Moon Silk. This Ice Moon Silk had the cultivation of Transcendent God Stage 5. Moreover, his combat strength was extremely high. She was leading 6 other people, and the other 6 people were not very strong. They were all from the 1st to the 3rd level of Supreme God. Chapter 5504. Frozen Moon Silk, one of the 4 great beauties of the Demon God clan's younger generation. Sui discovered that Kang Xinmu was observing her, so he quietly moved closer to Kang Xinmu's ear. "What do you think? Is this woman beautiful? She's also very strong. It's a pity that the Imperial Bing family she belongs to is showing signs of decline. The bloodline of the clan has withered. They want to rise up, but don't have that many descendants. She's transformed into the zero-degree demon god. How do I know if she's beautiful or not?" Kang Xinmu was somewhat helpless. He was only observing her strength. It was very likely that she would be a strong opponent. In Jiang Xinwu's estimation, this frozen moon silk strength was probably not much weaker than Su Tianhao's. It was even possible that she was stronger than Su Tianhao. Because this frozen moon silk seemed to be hiding some kind of power. Of course, this was what the demon god ancestor Mo Ye's consciousness told Kang Xinmu. The 0 degrees demon god was originally a woman. Therefore, the experts of the Imperial Bing family were basically all women. But not every woman of the Imperial Bing family could rise up. It also depended on talent and luck. And what Mo Ye told Kang Xinmu was that this frozen moon silk's luck was pretty good. She was born with the super powerful bloodline power of the 0 degrees demon god. Therefore, she could unleash 100% of the 0 degrees demon god's power. And the others of the 0 degrees demon god could only unleash 50% of the 0 degrees demon god's power. If they couldn't activate their bloodline power, their battle strength would naturally be greatly reduced. 0 degrees demon god, Sai. She was once this lord's confidant. Her strength speaks for itself. It's a pity that the current Imperial Bing family is actually ranked last among the 24 Imperial Bing families. The demon god ancestor Mo Yi lamented. With his words, Kang Xinmu paid more attention to this frozen moon silk. This woman was probably a strong opponent. Then, how much of the 0 degrees demon god's power can the current patriarch of the Imperial Bing family unleash? Kang Xinmu secretly asked Mo Ye's consciousness. 80%. Therefore, this frozen moon silk is practically destined to become the Ice Imperial family's patriarch in the future. She will bring the 0 degrees devil god to greater heights. The ancestor of the demon god was quite confident in this. He knew everything about the demon god clan like the back of his hand. With just a glance, he already knew the gist of it. The frozen moon silk can unleash the full power of the 0 degree demon god bloodline. Doesn't that mean that it's the same as a 16-winged heavenly demon god fully comprehending the 16-winged combat laws? She is a complete inheritor. Kang Xinmu narrowed his eyes. Mo Yi, on the other hand, indicated that she had only unleashed 70% of her bloodline power when fighting against the celestial fiend puppets. From this, it could be seen that this young girl was plotting something big. Perhaps, she wanted to obtain a higher individual ranking so that she could choose a territory that was more suitable for the Bing imperial family. For example, everyone knew that the Devil Spring Abyss was a treasure land that could nurture at least 2 peerless experts in 3 years. That must be something that only the first place could obtain. With the current strength of the Frozen Moon Silk, it was not impossible for her to obtain first place. Her cultivation base was at the 5th level of the Transcendent God realm. If she fully unleashed the power of her bloodline, coupled with a good demonic weapon, her battle strength had definitely surpassed Su Tianhao. One had to know that Su Tianhao had not even fully comprehended the 14-winged combat laws. Not to mention the 16-winged ones. Therefore, the gap between Su Tianhao and the Frozen Moon Silk was quite obvious. If you go against the Frozen Moon Silk, you must be careful. Kang Xinmu cautiously reminded Su Yi and Su Yi, this woman is not simple, she is very strong. Yes. Su Yi and Su Yi both firmly believed in Kang Xinmu and nodded solemnly. Su Tianhao, on the other hand, sneered when he heard this, looking somewhat disdainful. In his eyes, the Su imperial family was just a fallen royal family. It was not easy for them to produce a 5th-level transcendent god realm. What was there to care about? Su Tianhao immediately said, Kang Xinmu, what do you think of the Frozen Moon Silk? She is very strong. Kang Xinmu told the truth. Strong? I can't see it. Su Tianhao paused and said, you can't have taken a fancy to her beauty, right? Indeed, this Frozen Moon Silk is one of the 4 great beauties of our demon god clan's younger generation. Even Princess Su Yi does not have such a beautiful title. If you really like her, then I can understand. If you insist that this Frozen Moon Silk is very strong. Forgive me for not agreeing. When Su Tianhao said those words, the other people from the Su dynasty all laughed out loud. Some people were unhappy and mocked. Kang Xinmu, you are not honest. You have Princess Su Yi, but you still pay attention to other women, and one of the 4 great beauties, the Frozen Moon Silk. You have let down the princess. That's right. I heard that the Bing imperial family was publicly recruiting a husband for the Frozen Moon Silk last year. Unfortunately, they did not find anyone that could catch her eye. It can be seen that the Frozen Moon Silk has high standards. Why don't you give it a try, Kang Xinmu? Maybe with your identity as the direct disciple of the dragon god Emperor Shi, you can make her look up to you. Who knows? Many people laughed and teased Kang Xinmu. Shut up, all of you. Su Yu spoke. He glanced at Su Tianhao, who was leading the group, with a hint of displeasure in his eyes. At this time, they were still fighting among themselves. What kind of scandal was this? I think that the Frozen Moon Silk is indeed very strong. She is an opponent that needs to be careful of. Su Zhiyu was also looking at the Frozen Moon Silk in the field, observing her every move. She was an unparalleled expert. So naturally, she could see that the Frozen Moon Silk was hiding a lot of her strength. Perhaps she was a strong opponent to win first place. Since she made a bet with the Tuoba clan this time, she naturally wanted Kang Xinmu to win first place. It was necessary to be careful. Otherwise, once the boat failed, there would be no more chances. After all, the second round of the competition was a one-battle elimination system. As long as one lost, they would leave the field directly. The result would be confirmed, and there would be no chance for a comeback. Unfortunately, she glanced at Su Tianhao and the other younger generation of the Su clan. They seemed to have lost their vigilance. In their eyes, there was only the opponent of the Tuoba clan left. If this continued, the situation would not be good. Fortunately, Su Zhiyu's main focus was on Kang Xinmu. As long as Kang Xinmu paid enough attention to any opponent, it was very possible for him to win first place. She was quite familiar with Kang Xinmu's combat strength. Now, based on what she knew, Kang Xinmu could at least tie with the Frozen Moon Silk and Tuoba clan. As for Su Tianhao, it was impossible for him to be a match for Jiang Shenwu. Not to mention that Kang Xinmu might have some hidden combat strength that he had never shown. Besides Tuoba clan and the Frozen Moon Silk, Su Jiyu glanced at the field and stopped at the Litian clan. Obviously, although the Litian clan was relatively low-key, they were extremely strong. Chapter 5505. After being reprimanded by Su Er, Su Tianhao and the other younger generation dared not to tease Kang Xinmu anymore. Kang Xinmu did not care. He already knew that the younger generation of the Su clan did not have a good impression of him. But it did not matter. He would not befriend them. On the other hand, the Ice Moon Silk just now, the demon god ancestor even encouraged him to communicate with that girl. After all, the demon god ancestor and the 0 degrees demon god were once bosom friends. But Kang Xinmu was speechless. Bosom friend? The ancestor of the demon god probably wanted him to have some unclear relationship with the Ice Moon Silk. That way, he would be able to unite the people of the Bing imperial clan. In the demon god ancestor's mind, Kang Xinmu wanted to become the strongest existence of the demon god clan and unify the entire demon god clan. But Kang Xinmu was not too interested in this. After all, it was too difficult. He was more interested in becoming a dragon spirit warrior. It would be easier than unifying the demon god clan. It should be known that no one had ever been able to unify the entire demon god clan. However, there were traces of the dragon-soul dragon warriors in history. There were still many dragon-soul dragon warriors cultivating in seclusion in the dragon-soul sacred tower. Between something that had been done before and something that had never been done before, it was clear which was harder and which was easier. Of course, Kang Xinmu could not be bothered to think about such a distant matter. Soon, it was the Su clan's turn. I'll go first. Su Tianhao stood up and flew out with his 9 teammates, who had been arranged beforehand. He was full of confidence. Before he struck, not a single clan could withstand 35 attacks from a celestial fiend puppet. So, his goal this time was to surpass Tuoba Su and the 2 teams of the Tuoba clan, and withstand 35 attacks from the puppet. Kang Xinmu, Su Yi, and Su Yi did not move. This was Su Jiyu's arrangement. Kang Xinmu and Su Tianhao were separated into 2 teams. Kang Xinmu, who was the strongest, would lead the weaker ones. Of course, Su Jiyu did not think that Su Yi and Su Yi would be weaker than the other younger generation. After all, they had completely comprehended the 14-wing combat cultivation law. Therefore, as long as Su Yi and Su Yi didn't drag him down, Kang Xinmu alone could bring them along. In fact, Su Tianhao felt strange. Generally speaking, in this kind of situation, the 2 teams would rely on each other's strengths to make up for each other's weaknesses. The strong would lead the weak. In this case, both teams' rankings would be higher, which would be more beneficial to the overall ranking. But now, Su Tianhao found it strange. He was clearly the strongest in the Su royal family, so why wasn't he arranged to be with Su Yi and Su Yi? That's good too. This way, I can lead the other experts and obtain the highest result. Su Tianhao was nervous and excited at the same time. In his opinion, the patriarch definitely didn't want Su Yi, Su Yi, and Kang Xinmu to drag him down, so he split them up. This way, he would be able to obtain better results. This time, the pressure is great. With a strong enemy like Tuoba Su, it will be very difficult for me to obtain first place. I must not disappoint the patriarch and the others, Su Tianhao cheered himself on in his heart. The younger generation of the Su royal family that he led were not weak. They were from the 2nd level to the 5th level of the Transcendent God Realm. There were even 2 5th level Transcendent God Realm experts with Su Tianhao. One had to know that in the younger generation of the Su royal family, there were only 4 people who had reached the 5th level of the transcendent god realm. In other words, Su Tianhao brought 3 with him. In Su Tianhao's opinion, this was very good treatment. This was enough to show how much the patriarch valued him. Soon, they went on stage. The body of the 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial was transformed. The terrifying aura of the fiend celestial race spread out in all directions. And this time, each of them had more or less comprehended the 14-wing combat cultivation law. Their understanding of the power of their bloodline was deeper. Feeling the aura of Su Tianhao and the others, the expressions of many people changed slightly. So strong. The younger generation of the Su royal family were clearly a level stronger than before. What aura is this? This is the result of everyone deepening their understanding of the inheritance. They seem to be able to fully unleash the combat power of the 12 wings. Not only that, they seem to be able to unleash some of the combat power of the 14 wings. While the crowd was discussing, the attacks of the fiend celestial puppets began. The first wave. Su Tianhao and the others were still very serious. Each of them released a terrifying defensive demonic martial skill. The transcendent defensive demonic martial skill formed a layer of pitch-black buttocks, easily blocking the first wave of attacks from the fiend celestial puppets. Then came the second wave, the third wave. The attacks of the fiend celestial puppets came wave after wave, causing the surrounding people to carefully observe the aura of Su Tianhao and the others. This was especially true for the Tuoba clan. It seems that they are not very strong. Tuoba Shui glanced indifferently at the battlefield, the corners of his mouth slightly curling up. It's better to be careful. I keep feeling that something is wrong. The patriarch of the Tuoba clan, the old man Tuoba Matian, said seriously, each of them has stimulated the power of their inherited bloodline. Clearly, this is the improvement of the entire Su royal family. It cannot be ignored. Aren't we the same? It's just that we haven't shown it yet. Tuoba Shui said disdainfully. He continued to look at the battlefield, watching Su Tianhao and the others fending off the attacks of the fiend celestial puppets. I dare say that if they are not hiding any overly strong combat strength, this Su Tianhao is not a threat at all. If I fight him with all my strength, I can defeat him in 3 moves. Tuoba Shui said confidently. Then, he glanced sideways at Su Yi and Su Jiu, who were sitting cross-legged on the side of the Su royal family. Both of them were rare beauties. It was already very good that he could get one of them. It's such a waste to give such a great beauty like Su Jiu to such a cowardly father. If she were given to me, I would definitely let her give birth to dozens of descendants for me. He thought to himself with some regret. Meanwhile, Su Tianhao had no idea that Tuoba Shui's evaluation of him was actually like this. He was filled with excitement at the moment. He had easily fended off the 10 attacks of the fiend celestial puppets. My next target is 30 moves. He wanted to at least be on par with Tuoba Shui and the others, and then consider the situation. Without a doubt, the intensity of 30 moves was very frightening, and it had basically approached the small limit of Tuoba Shui and his team. Chapter 5506. 15 moves. 20 moves. Su Tianhao led the team and kept unleashing more powerful defensive demonic martial techniques. On the other hand, the attacks from the celestial fiend puppets were getting stronger and stronger. It was as if a great wave of fiend energy was crashing and rolling violently. After blocking the 20th move, Su Tianhao gave the order. Take out your demonic weapons. The effect of the defensive demonic weapons was to increase their defensive ability by several times. The effect of the transcendent demonic weapons was a qualitative change to their defensive energy. Then, the 21st attack of the celestial fiend puppet was easily defended by them. 22, 23, 25 moves. 30 moves. By the time they blocked the 30th move, the faces of all the onlookers had turned serious. 30 moves. So far, only the two teams of the Tuoba clan could reach this level. The Su clan was indeed one of the strongest imperial clans, as they had also reached 30 moves. But in the eyes of many, Su Tianhao's team consisted of almost all the elites of the Su clan, while the other team only had a 5th-stage transcendent god. It was almost impossible for them to achieve a good result. If Su Tianhao only managed to achieve 30 moves, then compared to the Tuoba clan, he would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage. So, Su Tianhao thought so too. Let's continue. Su Tianhao gritted his teeth. He had just blocked the 30th move, and it was already difficult for him. However, he felt that he should be able to block the 35th move. If he could not, then all his efforts would be in vain. So, he had to block the 35th move. 12-winged combat cultivation law. 14-winged combat cultivation law. Including Su Tianhao, all 9 people in the field released their strongest combat power. They had already revealed most of their strength. Then, 31 moves. Block. The power of the 9 defensive demonic martial techniques condensed into a terrifying barrier, blocking the attacks of the puppets. But their defensive barrier had already shattered. Then, the auras of the 12-winged and 14-winged bloodlines swept across the battlefield. Terrifying power surrounded the 9 of them, and an even more terrifying aura burst out. These guys are really fools. No wonder they can't fully comprehend the 14-winged combat cultivation law. Is this how the power of the bloodline is used? They don't even know how to hide it. What's the use of being competitive now? Demonic God Ancestor Demonic Knight was somewhat displeased with Su Tianhao and the others. Initially, he didn't have much of an opinion. But now, it seemed like Su Tianhao and the others were too retarded. One had to know that not only did they reveal all of their strength, they also revealed the greatest trump card of the entire Su royal family. Even Su Heir's expression was quite unsightly. This was only the first round. What was the point of exposing himself like this? What nonsense! However, he might have figured out Su Tianhao's mentality. This brat probably thought that he was the only one in the Su dynasty, and that he must obtain first place. That's why he put his life on the line. However, Su Heir and Su Zhiyu's trump card wasn't this guy at all. It's fine, it's fine. Kang Xinmu is the inheritor of the 16 wings. Su Zhiyu patted her chest and heaved a sigh of relief. Even if Su Tianhao wanted to reveal his full strength, he couldn't. Kang Xinmu could unleash the full power of 16 wings. How could others compare to him? She believed that Kang Xinmu would not be so impulsive as to expose his full strength. And that was the truth. How could Kang Xinmu reveal all of his strength in the first round? Was there a need to fight later? Kang Xinmu had the same mentality when he participated in the competition between the Holy Lands of the Dragon Soul Holy Tower and the Dragon God clan. It was impossible for him to reveal all of his strength in the first round. Fortunately, my trump card is stronger than theirs. Kang Xinmu also heaved a sigh of relief. In the arena, Su Tianhao and the others had revealed their strength. Then, they were able to resist the increasingly powerful attacks of the celestial fiend puppets. Originally, they could barely resist the attacks. But now, they were able to do it with ease. However, when the puppets released the 35th wave of attacks, they still felt a great pressure. The terrifying demonic energy roared and swept across the arena. It enveloped all of their 16-winged celestial fiend bodies. They needed to defend against the rampaging demonic energy from different directions. Therefore, the defensive demonic martial skills they used had to be stronger. Every 3 of them was responsible for one direction, and they needed to resist the next wave of attacks. The 35th move of the celestial fiend puppet was exactly such a terrifying attack. Because of this, Tuoba Shui and the others gave up on attacking the 35th wave. But, in order to surpass Tuoba Shui, Su Tianhao was ready to risk it all. Moreover, the more attacks he made, the weaker the opponents he would encounter in the second round would be. He could also get more points for each of his team members. There were still benefits, but the price was a little high. Facing the 35th wave of attacks of the celestial fiend puppet, their defensive strength could not keep up with the attacks anymore. In the end, their defenses were completely destroyed by the puppets. The terrifying demonic energy struck their 16-winged celestial bodies. But fortunately, they had resisted more than half of the impact. The rest of the demonic energy did not cause too much damage to their celestial bodies. Each of them was hit by the impact and crashed into each other, producing a terrible noise. They were injured. Although it was not serious, they were still injured. This made many people around them breathe a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on their faces. Now that they were injured, it meant that they would be at a disadvantage in the following battles. Although he had successfully withstood the 35th wave of attacks from the celestial fiend puppets, once he was injured, the extra points would become a useless burden. That meant that even a weaker opponent could defeat them. After all, in the second round, every time he defeated an opponent, he would be able to obtain 5 points. Who knew how many people would end up losing the next battle because of injuries just for this little bit of points? Was it worth it? After the 35th wave, Su Tianhao knew that he had reached his limit. But he did it. How are your injuries? Su Tianhao asked immediately, knowing that the situation was not good. Not bad. I can still exert about 90% of my strength. I can still exert about 80% of my strength. The impact was not too great, and it was still fine if they were not seriously injured. If they were lightly injured, they would still be able to defeat their opponents if they encountered a weaker opponent. Alright, let's go back. He waved his hand and brought his team back to the seats of the Imperial Su clan. He could tell that Su Er and Su Jiyu did not look well, but he had no choice but to come back. Chapter 5507. Kang Xinmu saw that Su Tianhao had returned, but didn't say anything. Su Er, however, shouted with a bad expression, "Don't you know how much strength you have? How did you end up like this? Exposed strength, all injured. Let's see how you fight next." Su Tianhao didn't refute Su Er's question. But he secretly clenched his fists. He didn't think he was wrong. He definitely couldn't let the Tuoba clan be so arrogant and domineering. As for their injuries, I can heal them very quickly. Kang Xinmu suddenly spoke. Oh? What do you have? Su Er was a little surprised. In her opinion, Kang Xinmu shouldn't care about this. But this was a serious matter. Whether it was Su Jiyu or Su Yi, regarding the bet between the two girls, Kang Xinmu couldn't let anything change. So in this ranking competition, Kang Xinmu would definitely give it his all. I have a power that can heal their injuries. But, not now. Kang Xinmu said solemnly, before they go on stage in the next round, I will heal all of their injuries and ensure that they fully recover their fighting strength. This was to catch the opponent off guard. Originally, the opponent thought that many of the Su royal clan's people were already injured, so they looked down on them. And Kang Xinmu's sudden healing of them was completely out of the opponent's expectations. It was very likely to turn a losing situation into a victory. This was called catching the opponent off guard. Su Er heard Kang Xinmu's words and revealed a satisfied expression. Worthy of being the man her daughter fell for. This meticulous thinking was on point. But such thinking required one to have enough strength to be able to completely heal them in a short period of time before going on stage. The difficulty of this was extremely high. Even Su Jiyu wasn't sure. But Kang Xinmu seemed to be relaxed, without any pressure at all. Su Tianhao's face darkened when he saw this scene. He did not expect that Tuoba Shui, whom he had painstakingly led and even managed to suppress the Tuoba royal family despite being injured, would actually end up benefiting Kang Xinmu. This Kang Xinmu was actually praised by Su Er. This was too unfair. Su Tianhao was a little unhappy, but he didn't show it. After all, right now was the time when the Su royal family was united against a common enemy. If Kang Xinmu could really heal him and the other people of the Su dynasty, then he would still be very grateful to Kang Xinmu. However, he had some doubts. Did Kang Xinmu really have such an ability? It wouldn't be fun if he made a fool of himself. Kang Xinmu naturally had the strength to do so. His devouring power could heal anyone. Apart from the dragon martial artists, it was the same for the demon god race's legacy cultivators. Then, it was Kang Xinmu's turn to block the attacks of the demon god puppets. In this round, Jiang Shenwu, Su Yi, and Su Yi, the three youths at the second level of the Transcendental God realm, were placed in the same team. The entire team only had one young expert at the fifth level of the Transcendental God realm from the Su royal family. This made almost everyone in the audience look down on this team. Those with a discerning eye could see that the Su royal family had clearly placed all their bets on Su Tianhao. Otherwise, how could Su Tianhao lead the team to the 35th wave of attacks? Moreover, the 9 people in Kang Xinmu's team did not seem to be very strong. They did not care about the 4th level Transcendent God at all. Therefore, only the 5th level Transcendent God might be able to cause some waves. With everyone looking down on them, Kang Xinmu's team of 9 stepped into the arena. Then, they each transformed into their true bodies of the demon god race. 6-winged heavenly demon god body, come out. Kang Xinmu also transformed into a 6-winged heavenly demon god body and hid among the 9 people. He did not seem to be out of the ordinary. Just like Su Yi and Su Yi, he looked like an ordinary second-level transcendent god. This Su Yi must taste pretty good. In the spectator area, the young Tuoba clan's seat was licking his lips. In his opinion, this woman had already been decided by him. He would definitely win first place in this ranking competition. He would definitely get this woman. And he would definitely bring Su Jiyu back to the Tuoba royal family. As for Kang Xinmu, who was next to Su Yi, Tuoba Shui did not even look at him. In his opinion, a mere second-level transcendent god kid was not worth his attention. He even felt that such a fellow should not even be qualified to participate in the ranking competition. The difference was too great. Begin. The demon god puppets did not wait for long. They immediately launched a terrifying attack at the 9 people. Kang Xinmu could already feel the astonishing power of the first wave of attacks. It was indeed an attack that required 9 people to work together to block. However, judging from the first wave, even if Kang Xinmu was alone, he could still block it easily. This wave of attacks was not strong. It was mainly to let the participants familiarize themselves with the demon god puppet's attacking style. Form the 16-wing defense formation. Just like Su Tianhao's team, the group was led by the 5th-level transcendent god youth. Their demon god puppet's wings emitted a terrifying aura at this moment. A 6-winged heavenly demon god devil chi barrier appeared in front of them. The power of the 9 people joined together. It was impossible to tell who was stronger and who was weaker. But everyone thought that the 5th-level transcendent god youth should be the strongest in this team. There was no doubt about it. Second wave. Easy. Third wave. Easy. As they easily passed through the 10th wave of attacks, people began to feel that something was wrong. This was too easy. It seemed that the members of this team had not taken out their demon weapons, which meant that they had not exerted their full power yet. How could they block the 10th wave of attacks so easily? It was a little unbelievable. It seemed that although this group of people did not look very good, their average strength was not bad. Many people were thinking. Not only the spectators, even the youths of the Su dynasty who were present felt a bit strange. They could feel that the defense of their 16-winged heavenly demon god defense formation was much stronger than they had expected. But they really did not know whose power it was that caused it. Only Kong Shinmu knew that it was because he was too strong. His defensive ability was outstanding. After all, he and Su Jiu had cultivated 6 Supreme Saint-level Transcendent God Super Demon God martial skills. 2 of them were defensive Supreme Divine Demon God martial skills, and he had fully used them and integrated them into the defense formation. His power alone was almost equal to the combined power of the other 8 people. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Chapter 5508. No one had expected that the strongest defensive power among the 9 was Kong Shinmu. Perhaps only Su Yi and Su Yi knew. Then there were Su Er and Su Jiu. Under the constant attacks of the peak-level super demon god puppets, the defensive barrier of Kong Shinmu and the others was not shaken at all. So strong. It's even more stable than Su Tianhao and the others? Yes, Su Tianhao and the others were almost unable to withstand the 10th wave of attacks. Let's see how long it will take for them to take out their demon weapons. This is too exaggerated. They withstood 10 waves of attacks. Many people were whispering to each other. They were all discussing and guessing if the young man at the 5th level of the Transcendent God Realm was the secret trump card of the Su royal family. Unfortunately, no one knew the truth. I've only used less than half of my power. Kong Shinmu was in the crowd, infusing his defensive power into the combined defensive barrier. Xiao Chen executed both of his transcendent divine defensive demonic martial techniques. But in the crowd, no one could tell which power belonged to whom. They could only guess blindly. And if they guessed blindly, the possibility of guessing that it was Kong Shinmu was very low. No one thought that this second-level transcendent god kid would have such powerful power. Basically, all eyes were on the 5th-level transcendent god youth. And this youth was called Su Gui. Su Gui himself was very depressed. Why did he not know that he was so powerful? Su Tianhao told him that they only needed to withstand 25 waves of attacks in the second round. They did not need to create any miracles. But who could tell him what was going on now? 10 waves without any pressure. This was too dreamy. Let's continue watching. Su Gui continued to strengthen his power. The current situation made him feel a little smug. They had not even used their full power. Under normal circumstances, they should have done so long ago. Otherwise, they would not have been able to withstand the 10th wave. But now, very quickly, the attacks of the demon puppets continued. The 15th wave. The 20th wave. The terrifying power was like a tidal wave, surging forward violently. But their defensive barrier was as tall as a mountain, and it was not shaken at all. At this time, Kong Shinmu's power had reached its limit. 20 waves. He did not unleash his demon weapon. This situation caused many people to stand up involuntarily. Something wasn't right. The defensive strength of these 9 people had exceeded everyone's expectations. When the 21st wave of attacks came, they finally released the power of their MO weapons. Almost everyone's transcendent god demon weapon was top grade. At this moment, the vast amount of energy released from the demonic weapons strengthened everyone's transcendent god demonic martial techniques. Their combined defensive barrier was instantly strengthened dozens of times. 25th wave. 30 waves. Up until the 30th wave, he had yet to encounter any setbacks. He didn't look like he was going to collapse at all. Continue. No matter how Su Gui thought about it, he couldn't think of a reason to give up. No matter how they were able to do it so smoothly, in short, they definitely had the reason and strength to charge for the 35th wave, or even higher. The 31st wave of attacks began, and it was an omnidirectional attack. Their defensive barrier spread out in all directions, blocking all angles. Kang Xinmu's formless weapon, Chen Xing, had already released half of its power. Half of its power was enough for now. All his defensive martial techniques were enhanced by Chen Xing's defensive battle patterns, and the effect of Chen Xing's battle patterns was many times stronger than the other weapons. Until the 35th wave of attacks came. Easy. No one had expected that they could easily resist the 35th wave of attacks. This scene truly shocked everyone. Originally, they didn't pay much attention to their relaxed performance. After all, it could be that someone among the 9 had used his full strength in advance. Naturally, it would be easier to defend. But now it seemed, not at all. They were just going according to the normal procedure. When the 35th wave of attacks descended so violently, he was actually able to block it so easily. This meant that the strength of these 9 people, they were really stronger than Su Tianhao's team. What's going on? Su Tianhao's face was as red as a mouse. He remembered that he had warned Su Gui that 25 waves would be enough for Su Gui. But now it seemed, he had underestimated Su Gui. Su Gui, this kid, he has been hiding his strength? Not bad. Su Tianhao's emotions surged. This meant that the Su clan still had other trump cards. Su Gui had always been low-key. He didn't expect that he had such strength. Su Tianhao was excited because he felt that he couldn't shoulder the heavy burden of the Su royal family. Now that Su Gui was here to share the pressure, he naturally relaxed a lot. But at the same time, Su Tianhao was unhappy that he was being played. After all, Su Gui hid his strength in front of him and pretended to listen to him. How ironic was that? Pity. He didn't know that Su Gui was also confused. Among Su Gui's group of 9, no one knew who was the strongest. Everyone thought it was Su Gui. And Su Gui thought it was either Su Yi or Su Yi, or both of them were very strong. After all, the two of them had completely comprehended the 14 Wings battle cultivation law. But Su Yi and Su Yi were very clear that this super strong defensive power mainly came from Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu alone took up at least 50% of the power in the entire defensive barrier. The others added up were only about the same as Kang Xinmu. Su Yi and Su Yi weren't very strong either. After all, they were only at the 2nd level of the Transcendent God realm, and they hadn't released the power of the 14 Wings cultivation law. Let's continue to the 40th wave. Does anyone have any objections? Su Gui gritted his teeth and asked the crowd. If they could reach the 40th wave, it meant that all of them would draw the weakest opponent in the next round. This was beneficial to them. However, could they withstand 40 waves of attacks? Go! Many people were a little arrogant. They saw that the 35th wave was easily defended and were full of confidence. Kang Xinmu saw this and couldn't help but smile bitterly. This meant that he had to continue to release more power. Half of the formless weapon's Chen Star power was not enough. He released 80% of the Chen Star defense and added it to his 2 super godlike defensive demonic martial skills. Then, they quietly merged into the surrounding defensive barrier. The defensive barrier of the 9 of them was greatly enhanced. Chapter 5509. With the power of Kang Xinmu's super defensive demon martial skill, the whole team's defensive barrier was almost indestructible. Wave after wave of attacks came. But it was impossible to break their defensive barrier, and it was impossible for them to be injured like Su Tianhao. How is this possible? This is more than 35 waves of attacks. How can they resist it so easily? Who on earth is so strong? Everyone's eyes swept across the 9 people in the field, but no one's eyes fell on Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu looked like he was only at Super God Stage 2. How could he be so strong that he could change the whole team? Su Gui had a look of pleasant surprise on his face. He didn't expect his team to be so strong. This meant he was going to be famous. Although he knew it wasn't because of himself, which young man didn't want to be famous? No matter what, this team was led by him. In the seats, Su Jiu and Su Er looked at each other and smiled, as if they had expected it. Only they knew that the decisive person in the field was Kang Xinmu. They didn't expect Kang Xinmu to be so strong that he could single-handedly control the whole situation in such a team defense battle. Su Er was a little surprised. Su Jiu, on the other hand, had expected it. Everyone was shocked by the situation in the field. No one expected this team, which seemed hopeless, to be able to make it this far. The 39th wave. The 40th wave. The monstrous devil chi of the fiend celestial puppets pressed down on the field like rolling black clouds. The monstrous devil chi seemed to be real, and it contained an unparalleled pressure. It rolled over, bringing with it endless destructive power. The most terrifying power had finally arrived. At this moment, the defensive barrier that Kang Xinmu and the others had created finally cracked. However, it was merely a crack. The endless demonic aura was still blocked outside the defensive barrier. If the attack was a little stronger, I'm afraid I would have to use more power. Fortunately, it's blocked. Kang Xinmu heaved a sigh of relief. In the field, the boundless demonic aura gradually dispersed. What appeared in front of everyone was the unharmed Su Dynasty's 9-man team. The others were delighted. Including Su Yi and Su Yi, they were very clear about Kang Xinmu's strength, but they didn't expect Kang Xinmu to be able to do this. Yi, you've picked up a treasure. Su Yi chuckled and whispered, I really envy you. If you guys weren't already together, I would have pursued him. Su Yi's adorable face was bright red. He is very powerful. But he seems to have a woman in the Dragon God clan. This made Su Yi quite depressed. But after all, Kang Xinmu was a member of the Dragon God clan. Even if he had some relationship with the Dragon God clan, she really couldn't control him. Alright, don't think too much. You are the princess of our Su dynasty. Who can compare to you in status? Su Yi held her little hand and comforted her. No matter what, father has already admitted that you two are together, which means that you and him are fair and square. No one can compare to you. Su Yi pursed her lips and nodded. She wasn't really depressed. She was just a little worried that Kang Xinmu would be snatched away. During this period, she really missed Kang Xinmu too much. Every time she thought of Kang Xinmu, she couldn't help but wonder what he was doing, and whether there were other women by his side, but she was a straightforward person, so she didn't dwell too much on this matter. At least now, she was together with Kang Xinmu. And she was fighting side by side with Kang Xinmu. And she had achieved a result that made the Su dynasty proud, and shocked all the 24 royal clans of the Demon God clan. They had withstood 40 waves of attacks from the Demon God puppets. This kind of achievement might not be unprecedented, but it was at least very rare. Even the super genius of the Tuoba clan, Tuoba Shui, had only led a team through 30 waves, and didn't even attempt 35 waves. From this, it could be seen that it was not that easy to go from 30 to 40 waves. Su Tianhao's team was even injured because he forced his way through 35 waves. If it weren't for Kang Xinmu, it would have been a disaster. But now, Kang Xinmu and his team had withstood 40 waves of attacks from the Demon God puppets. How amazing was this? The most frightening thing was that even the clan leaders of the other royal clans couldn't tell who was the strongest among the 9. Or was it that the average strength of the 9 of them was stronger? Was there something special about each of them? Such a situation was not impossible. But there were 3 second-stage supreme gods in this team, and their level was too low. To be able to bring these 3 people along, it meant that the average strength of the others was beyond everyone's imagination. After the shock brought by Kang Xinmu's team had passed, the ranking competition quickly continued. The other royal clans didn't have anything outstanding. But when it was the Li Tian clan's turn, everyone's attention was once again drawn to them. The Li Tian clan had the powerful inheritance of the rock-shattering mountain-shaking demon god. In their bodies flowed the bloodline of the rock-shattering mountain-shaking demon god, and they had the strongest body in the entire demon god clan. Li Tianxiong was the Li Tian clan's super genius of this generation. He was even as famous as Tuoba Shui. And the Li Tian clan only had one style. Charge, charge, charge. They didn't know what it meant to hide their strength, and what it meant to distribute evenly. In the first round of the ranking competition, they would always gather their strongest together, and then strive for a higher result to get first place. This time, Li Tianxiong led 4 5th-stage Supreme Gods and 4 4th-stage Supreme Gods. These were the 9 strongest young experts of the Li Tian clan. Break through 40 levels. Li Tianxiong roared, and transformed into the body of the rock-shattering mountain-shaking demon god. It was a huge rock demon god, its entire body made of terrifyingly hard rock, and its bloodline was as hot as lava. Their power could be combined to form a wall of molten flames. To be honest, the rock-shattering mountain-shaking demon god's inheritance was not very good at defense, especially when it came to team defense. Their strength was in their bodies. But it was difficult for their bodies to be combined. The wall of lava they formed was their most suitable group defense, but compared to the other demon god clan inheritances, it was still a little crude. This was because the wall of lava could only accumulate half of each person's strength. It was too weak compared to the other inheritances. But, even if they could only accumulate half of each person's strength, it was terrifying enough. Chapter 55:10. Each of the inheritors of the Litian clan's rock-shattering mountain-shaking fiend god stood towering in the middle of the field like a mountain. Wave after wave of attacks from the celestial fiend puppets smashed onto them like raging waves. 10 waves. 20 waves. The Li Tian clan was very successful in blocking these attacks. It was even more successful than when Jiang Shenwu was present, when the 9 people of the Su imperial clan united. The reason was that the Litian clan had gathered the 9 strongest experts together. Each of them possessed a terrifying overall strength, and could even be compared with Su Gui and Su Tianhao. In Kang Xinmu's opinion, the strongest among them, Litian Xiong, could even be compared with him. Unfortunately, the rock-shattering mountain-shaking fiend god's legacy mainly focused on cultivating the fleshly body. Therefore, this method of fighting together was relatively weak. But it did not affect the overall situation. Even if the cultivators of the Litian clan's fiend god clan did not perform well in the first round of the ranking competition, they could always make up for it in the second round. Their opponents were usually the strongest in the first round. But their actual combat strength was not shown in the first round. Only in the second round of one-on-one battles did they show their true strength. They were basically invincible among the same level. The legacy of the Litian clan, the rock-shattering mountain-shaking fiend god, did possess such terrifying power. At the same time, led by Litian Xiong, the 8 strongest young experts of the Litian clan, they were trying their best to withstand the 40th wave of attacks from the celestial fiend puppets. Even if they could not take the first place, they could not let anyone else take it. At least, they had to tie for first place. Their overall strength was much stronger than Kang Xinmu, Su Gui, and the others. But, their weakness was the legacy itself. Therefore, it was still somewhat difficult for them to withstand the 40th wave of attacks. Facing the increasingly powerful attacks of the celestial fiend puppets, Litian Xiong let out a furious roar and unleashed all his strength, making the wall of molten flames even stronger. Endless molten flames burned, and the temperature in the field soared. Everyone's eyes were focused on Litian Xiong, and their faces flickered slightly when they saw the terrifying power he unleashed. He was too strong. This Li Tianxiong did not look any weaker than Tuoba Xian from the Tuoba clan. The second round was getting harder. 35 waves. 40 waves. In the end, Li Tianxiong led the younger generation of the Li Tian royal clan and successfully defended against the 40th wave of attacks. However, all 9 of them had been bombarded by the 40th wave of violent energy. Their combined molten wall was unable to withstand the 40th wave of attacks. However, they were fearless. Their physical bodies were incomparably strong, much stronger than Su Tianhao and the others. Even if they were hit head-on by the 40th wave of attacks, they would only suffer some minor injuries. Furthermore, the rock-shattering mountain-shaking demon god's heritage of the Li Tian clan allowed him to recover his strength very quickly. By the time the second round started, they would have recovered completely. Li Tian clan is a great enemy. Every single one of them is very strong, unlike the Tuoba clan. Tuoba Shi is the only one I care about, Kang Xinmu thought. Then, it was time for the second group of young inheritors from the Li Tian clan. This time, the 9 from the Li Tian clan were far weaker than the previous wave. The strongest among them was only at Transcendent God level 4. In addition, their combined defense was not strong to begin with. This time, the 9 of them only managed to defend against 20 waves of attacks before retreating. This was the usual style of the Li Tian clan. If they felt that they could not withstand the attacks, then there was no need to forcefully defend. They would conserve their strength and make up for it with a good result in the second round. The Li Tian clan strategy was not bad. Over the years, the Li Tian clan had been able to achieve good results. They were always in the top 3 and often even won first place. 40 waves, 20 waves. The difference between the two groups of people from the Li Tian clan is really huge. Suyi exclaimed. She was not too worried. She and Kang Xinmu were in the same group and obtained the best results. Their opponent in the second round would definitely not be from the Li Tian clan. Instead, it might be the Bing royal clan. Suyi had been paying attention to the genius of the Bing royal clan, Ice Moon Silk. He was rather wary of her. Ice Moon Silk's talent was very high. News of her had spread throughout the demon god great world. She was even more famous than Su Yi and Su Yi. She was even more famous than Su Jiu. Her beauty was one aspect, but her strength was another. Yet, the Bing royal clan that she was in had weak overall strength. They were defeated so quickly in the first round. Then, the Bing royal clan that she was in would very likely face Kang Xinmu's group in the first round. Unfortunately, not many people in the Su royal clan paid attention to Ice Moon Silk. No matter what, Kang Xinmu felt that he was the only one in the entire Su royal clan who could defeat Ice Moon Silk. The others, whether it was Su Yi or Su Yi, were slightly inferior. After all, the two women were only at the second level of the Transcendent God realm. As for Su Tianhao, Su Gui, and the other fifth-level Transcendent God realm youths, they were not at a disadvantage in terms of realm. Unfortunately, their combat skills were not strong enough. They had not even completely comprehended the 14 Wings combat cultivation rule. This meant that the youths of the Su royal clan could only use 70% of their 16-winged heavenly demon god inheritance's power. Not even 70%. But Ice Moon Silk could use 100% of the 0-degree demonic god inheritance's power. This was a huge, insurmountable gap. Soon, the first round of the ranking competition was over. The huge body of the fiend celestial puppet was taken away. The center of the arena quietened down, as if nothing had happened. The next most important segment, the drawing of lots for the second round, had arrived. Kang Xinmu's goal was to get first place among everyone. Therefore, he had to pass the second round and enter the top 16. And to pass the second round, he had to defeat his opponent in 3 consecutive elimination rounds to get a chance to win. Moreover, he might have to accept the challenge of some losers. Some of the stronger youths might encounter stronger opponents and be defeated regrettably in the elimination rounds. Therefore, as long as half of the 24 demon god royal clan's patriarchs thought that the youths were strong enough, they would be granted an additional right to challenge. In the top 16, they could choose their opponent. If they could defeat their opponent, they would replace their opponent and enter the top 16. And if they failed, all the points they had earned would be reduced to 0. The right to challenge could be exercised or abandoned. But once it was exercised, there was no turning back. Either they won, or their points would be reduced to 0, dragging down the total points of the royal clan they belonged to. All in all, the rules were fair. In the end, the only way to obtain results was to rely on their fists. Chapter 55:11. It was time to draw lots. On the Su royal family side, Su Jiyu was drawing lots. When the lots were being drawn, the elder, Tuoba Matian, was still sizing up Su Jiyu. Although he didn't say anything, everyone knew what his eyes meant. Su Jiyu was expressionless, and left after drawing lots. In any case, she had absolute confidence in Kang Xinmu in this ranking competition. Kang Xinmu had to get first place. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made such a bet with him, and even put herself and Su Yi on the line. She gave Kang Xinmu an opportunity. An opportunity for Kang Xinmu to obtain a heaven and earth saint quality. Since they made a bet, why not make 2 bets, and let Kang Xinmu obtain 2 heaven and earth saint quality? To the Su royal family, there wasn't much benefit. After all, 1 heaven and earth saint quality was given to Kang Xinmu, and 1 to Su Yi. However, this was equivalent to increasing the overall strength of the Su royal family. Su Jiyu returned. She opened the jade slip in her hand, and glanced at it. Everyone from the Su royal family's first match of the second round is in this jade slip. Kang Xinmu against the Jin royal family, Jin Luyue. Su Tianhao against the Bing royal family, Ice Moon Silk. As the battle list was announced, everyone's expression changed. Kang Xinmu, Su Yi, and Su Yi, due to their excellent performance in the first round, persisting for 40 waves, were fighting against weaker opponents. Of course, there were some who weren't so lucky, such as Su Tianhao. He faced the Ice Moon Silk. The Ice Moon Silk's strength was definitely among the top of all the participating experts. It was at least top 10, or even top 5. And Su Tianhao, he thought he was the trump card of the Su royal family. But in reality, his battle strength might not necessarily be stronger than the Ice Moon Silk. The reason why the Ice Moon Silk faced Su Tianhao was because there were too few people in the younger generation of the Bing royal family. There were only a few people, and they couldn't even gather 9 people. Therefore, it was very difficult for Frozen Moon Silk to get a good result in the first round. But in terms of individual strength, she was very, very strong. Kang Xinmu had given her such an evaluation before, but Su Tianhao did not believe it. There were even people who ridiculed Kang Xinmu, asking if he had taken a fancy to the Ice Moon Silk. Naturally, Kang Xinmu couldn't be bothered with this. Next, Su Tianhao would have to fight against the Ice Moon Damask. Once the results of the battle were out, the situation would become clearer. Kang Xinmu said that the Ice Moon Silk was very strong. Whether it was true or not, Su Tianhao could experience it himself. I will fight against Ice Moon Silk. This Ice Moon Silk is a pretty good opponent. Su Tianhao stood up, obviously very confident. He was the strongest in the younger generation of the Su royal family. Could it be that he couldn't defeat the Ice Moon Damask? In Su Tianhao's eyes, Ice Moon Silk was a genius of the younger generation of the declining demon god race's royal family. How could she be compared to the #1 genius of a powerful royal family like him? Even if the ice moon silk was strong, he, Su Tianhao, was definitely stronger. Su royal family, I will fight first. Kang Xinmu squinted his eyes. According to the results of the first round, from highest to lowest, Kang Xinmu was ranked first. Of course, Li Tianxiong and the others from the Li Tian clan were ranked before Kang Xinmu. It wasn't that the 9 people from the Li Tian clan were ranked before Kang Xinmu, but because they fought after the first round, they were naturally ranked first in the second round. Of course, this was under the situation where the results of the first round were the same. Otherwise, the better the results of the first round, the earlier they would fight. Li Tianxiong and the others were all the strongest in the Li Tian clan. In the second round, their opponents weren't particularly strong. Almost all of them were crushed. Li Tianxiong and the others won the first round. Next, it was Kang Xinmu's turn. Su Gui was the first to fight, defeating a demon god race youth from the declining royal family. Next was Su Yi, Su Yi. The 2 girls' opponents weren't strong either, only at the first level of super demon god. They didn't last long against the 2 girls before being defeated. To be honest, those who could reach the transcendent god level before the age of 30 were no weaklings. But in a battle between the demon god race's royal family, the first level of super demon god was not very good. Soon, it was Kang Xinmu's turn. Kang Xinmu's opponent was Jin Luiyue of the Jin royal family. She was a young girl in her early 20s, and the Jin royal family was a mid-tier demon god race royal family. The reason she didn't get a good result was because Jin Luiyue was said to be injured and was still in a serious state, so she couldn't use her full strength. Your name is Kang Xinmu, not Su. Jin Luiyue's expression eased slightly when she saw Kang Xinmu, who was only at the second level of super demon god. In her opinion, this Kang Xinmu was too easy to deal with. Even though she was severely injured, she was still a super demon god level 4. Let's begin. Kang Xinmu didn't waste time with her and directly transformed into the body of a 16-headed heavenly demon god. Jin Luiyue frowned slightly. She felt Kang Xinmu's strong fighting spirit and felt a strong suppression. This surprised her. A second-level transcendent god can make me feel suppressed? Jin Luiyue found it unbelievable. She immediately activated the demon god race's bloodline, and a terrifying demonic aura exploded from her body. Her entire body turned into a golden demon god. Golden full moon demon god. The Jin royal family's demon god race's bloodline was still very strong. She had just transformed into a demon god when waves of terrifying golden blades spread out. Every golden blade contained terrifying lethality. If an ordinary second-level super demon god encountered this, they would definitely be in big trouble. What a pity. In Kang Xinmu's eyes, these golden blades didn't have the slightest bit of pressure. He could even use his 16-winged heavenly demon god body to block them. But he didn't underestimate his opponent. Who knew if there was some hidden power in Jin Luiyue's golden blades? Demonic Wings Tornado. A terrifying supreme divine demon martial skill was released from Kang Xinmu's back. The 16 heavenly demon wings on his back completely unfolded, and a violent demonic aura tornado was released through the formless weapon. Chen Xing Kang Xinmu only used half the power of the offensive battle pattern. But the supreme divine demon martial skill, Demonic Wings Tornado, seemed to want to destroy heaven and earth. It enveloped all of his opponent's golden blades and engulfed them one by one. Then, the Demonic Wings Tornado whistled and landed directly in front of Jin Luiyue's golden full moon demon god body. Defend. The golden full moon demon god body suddenly released a golden light, like a golden wall, blocking the Demonic Wings Tornado. Unfortunately, she was injured after all. Even though Kang Xinmu only used half the power of the offensive battle pattern, Jin Luiyue couldn't block it at all. Her entire body was pushed back by the Demonic Wings Tornado, and wounds quickly appeared on the surface of the giant golden full moon demon god body. I admit defeat. Chapter 55:12. Jean Luiyue admitted defeat. She was not the only one who did not expect it. The others also did not expect that she would lose to a level 2 transcendent god from the Su royal family. As expected of Emperor Shi's personal disciple. He adapted to the demon god race's fighting style so quickly. He is very strong, but he is only strong among those of the same level. He still can't win against those who are truly strong. That's right. Jean Luiyue was only injured earlier. Otherwise, she would not have lost to this person. Everyone whispered to each other and discussed spiritedly. They pointed at Kang Xinmu. No one could see how strong Kang Xinmu's technique was. In reality, Kang Xinmu did not use any strong techniques. In order to make others underestimate him, so that he could take them by surprise and obtain an easier victory, he hid himself. Not only did he only use half of the formless weapon Chen Xing's battle patterns, but he also only used the heaven-level demon wing tornado. This super divine demon skill was one of the 6 super divine demon skills that he had learned from Su Jiu. He had already comprehended it to the extreme sage level. Thus, the demon wing tornado he used now did not even use a tenth of his full strength. After all, Jean Luiyue is injured. Her true strength is only level 2 transcendent god. Kang Xinmu did not need to use his true strength at all. He did not even use his devouring power and easily won the battle. He returned to his seat. Not bad. Su Tianhao faintly nodded and said. He felt that Kang Xinmu did not embarrass the Su royal family. As the strongest of the Su royal family's younger generation, he should be praised to show his magnanimity. Of course, he was not really praising Kang Xinmu. He only thought that he represented everyone's opinion. Kang Xinmu ignored him. He returned to Su Yi and Su Yi's side. Then, the other matches continued. Not long after, it was finally Su Tianhao's turn to fight against the 0-degree demon god inheritor of the Bing royal family, Ice Moon Silk. Kang Xinmu's expression became serious. Both of them were supreme demon god level 5 existences. Although he predicted that Su Tianhao would lose, he also hoped that Su Tianhao could perform at his best. It would be best if Su Tianhao could squeeze out all the strength of the Ice Moon Silk and display it. In that case, it would be much easier to deal with the Ice Moon Silk in the future. Frozen Moon Silk, I did not expect that my opponent would be you. However, I will not show any mercy. Su Tianhao entered the arena. He turned into a 16-winged heavenly demon god and said lightly. He had trained with the Ice Moon Silk before, so they could be considered to be acquainted. I won't hold back either. Ice Moon Silk's pretty face was cold as she spoke, unwilling to show weakness. This made Su Tianhao a little unhappy. Previously, when they were training together, he felt that the Ice Moon Silk wasn't as strong as him. Now, it was the same. Yet, the Ice Moon Silk actually said the same thing to him. This girl was too arrogant. 0-degree demon god, unleash. The Ice Moon ribbon transformed into a slender demon god whose entire body was covered in ice. She looked slender and gave off an extremely cold feeling. Let's start. Su Tianhao sneered and released all his strength. He did not hold back. He immediately unleashed his most powerful technique. Moreover, a supreme divine demon weapon long saber appeared in his hand. He waved it and slashed out several pitch-black saber gleams. Heavenly demon drawing saber slash. The pitch-black saber gleams exploded and almost shattered the void. They instantly swept towards the front of the Ice Moon Silk 0-degree demon god. These pitch-black saber gleams contained the unparalleled inheritance power of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. Every saber gleam contained surging demonic aura as though it could split the heavens. Facing the terrifying pitch-black saber gleams, the Ice Moon Silk 0-degree demon god remained calm. She merely waved her hand, and terrifying icy demonic aura surged out of her body. Extreme Frost Kingdom. Waves of turbulent icy demonic aura surged out from her demonic body. The terrifying icy demonic aura surrounded her demonic body and formed an extremely low-temperature domain. In this domain, everything, including time, seemed to have slowed down. As for the saber gleams, they seemed to have fallen into a quagmire and were trapped in this extreme frost kingdom. Although they caused many cracks in the air, they were ultimately unable to harm the Ice Moon Silk. Frost Kingdom, explode. The Ice Moon Silk's 0-degree demon god was completely surrounded by an icy barrier. Immediately afterward, the Frost Kingdom that she had just created exploded. Endless ice scattered in all directions. The temperature of the entire gladiator arena dropped to its lowest point. Ice shards flew everywhere. It was as though the heavens had turned into ice cubes and shattered. Even Su Tianhao's 16-winged heavenly demon god body started to freeze. Demonic Wings Battle Rampage. The 16 wings on Su Tianhao's back erupted with tyrannical power. He used his strongest supreme divine demon skill, Sky Demon Wings crisscrossing battle. He had already cultivated this supreme divine demon skill to the highest level, the supreme divine demon realm. He had a deep understanding of this demonic skill. The only pity was that he could not use the full power of the 16-winged heavenly demon god race inheritance. He could only use the power of the 12-winged heavenly demon god race inheritance. He had not even fully mastered the power of the 14-winged heavenly demon god race inheritance. But even if he had only mastered a portion of the 14-winged heavenly demon god race inheritance, his combat strength was still worlds apart from when he had been a month ago. Break for me. Demonic aura constantly erupted from his heavenly demon god race wings, forming howling vortexes that crushed the surrounding ice shards into powder. The Wing Battle Rampage's demonic chi vortex exploded in an instant, spreading waves of demonic aura to the surroundings. The Ice Moon Silk's extreme frost kingdom was quickly shattered by the waves of demonic aura. Countless ice shards danced in the air before shattering into shards. 0-degree demon god heavenly thrust. The Ice Moon Silk's heavenly demon god body rapidly erupted with even greater power. Her expression was grave. It was obvious that Su Tianhao's strength had exceeded her expectations. But, Su Tianhao was still no match for her. Because in this period of time, she had also improved greatly. She had completely mastered the full power of the 0-degree demon god. She could unleash 100% of the power of the inheritance. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years that the 0-degree demon god's inheritance had appeared in the Bing royal family. This meant that she would definitely become the leader of the Bing royal family and lead the entire Bing royal family to the peak. This kind of improvement was much stronger than Su Tianhao's. Su Tianhao had not even completely mastered the 14 wings cultivation law, let alone the strongest 16 wings cultivation law. He was not even qualified to touch this level. 0-degree demon god heavenly thrust. As the Ice Moon Damask released this inherited transcendent divine demonic martial technique, boundless icy demonic chi condensed in the sky, forming many horrifying icicles. Chapter 55:13. 0-degree demon god heavenly thorn. This supreme divine demon martial technique's horrifying power instantly engulfed Su Tianhao's demon god body. The 0-degree ice heavenly thorn almost froze everything. Su Tianhao's entire devil god body shuddered. This Ice Moon Damask was too strong, far stronger than he had expected. How could this woman have such terrifying strength? I was careless. Su Tianhao's body was already invaded by the cold air. The endless 0-degree demon god's power corroded his body, causing his demon body to become even more fragile. The cold air instantly attacked, accompanied by the endless demonic energy Heaven Thorn, suppressing him to the ground. Boom! The horrifying power pressed down, freezing everything around him into ice. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. This move was simply too powerful. It actually suppressed Su Tianhao and froze his 16-winged demon god body into an ice sculpture. At this point, Su Tianhao had no ability to resist. He lost. I lost. Su Tianhao's body was bone-chilling cold. Even though he was frozen into an ice sculpture, he still had consciousness. He could not move, but he knew he lost. Kang Xinmu was right. This woman is very strong. Su Tianhao clenched his teeth, feeling powerless all over his body. His opponent was much stronger than him. Unless he could completely comprehend the 14-winged battle cultivation law, it was impossible to defeat this woman. Moreover, even if he really mastered the 14-winged battle cultivation law, he could not fully display the inherited power of a 16-winged demon god. At most, he could fight to a draw with the Ice Moon's Silk. My strength is still too weak, I can't even defeat a descendant of a declining royal family. Isn't this a disgrace to the Su royal family? I lost in the first match of the second round. Although I will definitely have the right to challenge, I am not willing. Su Tianhao clenched his teeth. This defeat was a wake-up call for him. No matter who he faced, he could not be careless. This was a lesson that made him lose a lot of face. But now, he definitely would not lose. The battle ended. Su Tianhao returned to the Su royal family's seating area. Patriarch, I've lost. But I feel that I have some understanding of the 14-winged combat cultivation law. I can break through now. In the next battle, no matter who I face, I will not lose. Su Tianhao said seriously. Next time? I'm afraid there won't be a next time. Su Er calmly said, the right to challenge requires more than half of the 24 imperial families present to vote for it. It's a pity that you didn't receive more than half of the votes. He gave it to Su Tianhao. But in the end, only 10 royal families agreed. Obviously, the other royal families did not approve of Su Tianhao's strength. Or, they were dissatisfied with the Su royal family and didn't want Su Tianhao to have another chance. What? Su Tianhao felt like he was struck by lightning. There was no next time? How was this possible? How could not half of them approve of his additional challenge? Could it be that his strength was so weak that he could not enter the eyes of the other royal families? Because of the bet. This bet is not just between us and the Tuoba clan, Su Zhiyu said faintly from the side. There are also many royal families that are hostile to us. They want to see us become a joke and want us to lose to the Tuoba family. Of course, even the royal families that are on good terms with us didn't vote for you because it's beneficial for them if our strength is weakened. At the very least, they can't just watch as we obtain 2 saint items of heaven and earth and let our strength increase for nothing. Su Tianhao naturally understood what Su Zhiyu meant. So it was because of the bet. He heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that his strength was really so weak that he couldn't even get the right to challenge. Since that was the case, he relaxed a little. But very quickly, he became nervous. That's not right. If he couldn't fight, wouldn't the Su royal family lose for sure? How could they get first place? He knew the strength of everyone in the younger generation of the Su royal family. Other than Kang Xinmu, of the 18 people participating in the battle, no one else was his match. As for Kang Xinmu, even though he had just defeated an expert of the Jin royal clan, the full moon demon god, he was, after all, injured. He didn't think that Kang Xinmu had the strength to surpass him. Since that was the case, he was definitely the first in the Su royal family. Now that the first in the Su royal family lost to the Ice Moon's Silk, didn't that mean that the Su royal family would lose for sure? They definitely couldn't get first place. Su Zhiyu and Su Yi were going to be forced to marry Tuoba Shui and Tuoba Zhenwu. Absolutely not. Su Tianhao's eyes turned red. Clan leader. Aunt. You must fight for the right to challenge. Otherwise, how can we get first place? Su Yu immediately became stern. The result is out. How can you fight for it? You fought for the opportunity yourself. Since you didn't grasp it, you can't blame others. But I harmed Aunt and Yi. Su Tianhao's eyes were red. Don't worry, it's not that bad. Su Zhiyu smiled faintly. She looked at Kong Xinmu. She had absolute confidence in Kong Xinmu. But now, when Su Tianhao was defeated and lost the right to challenge, everyone was certain that the Su royal family couldn't be first. Of course, even if Su Tianhao was still there, the Su royal family could at most get into the top 5. To get first, did they ask Li Tianxiong and Tuoba Shui? Those two were the absolute candidates for first and second place. As for the Ice Moon Silk, it was merely in the top 5. Right now, Su Tianhao couldn't even beat the Ice Moon Silk. Wasn't he dreaming if he wanted to be first? The key now was whether there was anyone else in the Su royal family that could stand out. But everyone understood that it was too difficult. Strength was not something that could be cultivated overnight. Although the Su royal family seemed to have grasped some of the demon god race's power this time. But this did not bring about a qualitative change. For example, Su Tianhao was still inferior to the Ice Moon Silk. The gap that existed in the past still existed now. It was just that the gap had shrunk a little. Relying on this to get first place was basically a fool's dream. As for Kong Xinmu, although his performance just now was not bad, not many people paid attention to him. Even if they paid attention to him, it was only because of his identity. He was from the dragon god race and was the personal disciple of Emperor Shi's divine dragon. That was all. As for his demon god race strength, no one would acknowledge it. Chapter 55:14. When Su Tianhao was defeated, no one thought that the Su royal family had any hope of taking first place. On the Tuoba royal family's side, they were almost celebrating winning this ranking competition. After all, in their opinion, other than Su Tianhao, there was no one else in the Su royal family who could compare to Tuoba Shui. Of course, the Li Tian clan was also a threat, but Tuoba Shui was still confident. The key was that the Su royal family had completely lost the possibility of taking first place. Then, even if the Tuoba clan could not take first place, it could not be taken by the Su royal family. This meant that they at least kept 2 sacred items. Next, it was up to them to see if they could take first place, and then if they could win the beauties. Whether it was Su Zhiyu or Su Yi, they were both beauties that Tuoba Shui wanted. Su Tianhao lost. But others should not lose. The Su royal family's foundation is still there. The Bing royal family only has the Ice Moon Silk. Next, the Su royal family went relatively smoothly. Apart from Su Tianhao, who was unlucky enough to encounter the Ice Moon Silk, everyone else advanced. This made Su Tianhao want to cry. Why? Why did he draw the Ice Moon Silk? This was too despairing. Su Tianhao was very unhappy and had too many regrets. After all, this was his first and last time participating in the ranking competition between the demon god royal family. After this, the next time the competition started, he would be over 30 years old and lose the right to participate again. Damn it! Su Tianhao's entire person was about to collapse. But now, no one cared about what he thought. Within the Su royal family, many people actually had quite a bit of opinions about Su Tianhao. After all, this person usually claimed to be the number one of the younger generation. For example, Su Gui was quite unhappy with Su Tianhao. But Su Gui really could not beat Su Tianhao, so he did not say anything on the surface. Now that he saw Su Tianhao actually defeated by a woman, he was secretly delighted. Of course, until the last moment, Su Gui did not dare to say anything. After all, he did not know how far he could go. If he lost miserably, then wasn't mocking Su Tianhao the same as mocking himself? So Su Gui's current state of mind was very stable. He just had to persevere. The second sentence is about to begin. It's better for Jiyu to draw the lots. Su Er sat in her seat, not wanting to move. Su Jiyu did not decline. Drawing lots was just a representative from the royal family anyway. Soon, she returned with the results of the second round of drawing. Kang Xinmu vs Taba Zhantian. Taba Zhantian. When Kang Xinmu found out who his next opponent was, his expression changed slightly. This fellow was the number 5 figure of the Taba clan in this competition. It wasn't too strong, but it was the first time the Su royal clan had a direct confrontation with the people of the Taba clan. None of the others had any opponents from the Taba clan. Starting from the second match of the second round, the drawing of lots became completely random. It was no longer based on the results of the first round. Therefore, it was possible to encounter any kind of opponent. It's over. When the Su imperial clan saw that Kang Xinmu had actually encountered Tuoba Zhantian, their complexions became unsightly. Tuoba Zhantian was an expert of the Taba clan. Although he was only ranked 5th among the younger generation of the Taba clan, Tuoba Zhantian was still a level 5 super demon god. He was one of Tuoba Shi's loyal followers. Don't worry, big brother. This person is only at level 2 of the transcendent god realm. I will definitely defeat him in one move. Tuoba Zhantian stood up, his face full of a cold smile. He stared at Kang Xinmu, who was sitting in the Su royal clan seats, his eyes full of disdain. In the previous round, Kang Xinmu had fought against the injured Jin Luyue. He didn't display any strength at all, so no one knew how strong he really was. However, other than Su Er, Su Jiyu, and a few others, no one thought that Kang Xinmu could create a miracle. After all, he was only at level 2 of the transcendent god realm. His cultivation was 3 levels lower than the others. How could he fight? The personal disciple of Emperor Shi of the Dragon God clan. Today, I want to see how powerful he is. Tuoba Zhantian laughed loudly. Ha! If he can't beat you, he might turn into a dragon to beat you. Then you have to be careful. I heard that this Kang Xinmu's Dragon God clan's inheritance is very strong. You have to be careful, haha. Yeah, don't give him a slap in the face. The Tuoba royal clan's people joked wildly. In the ranking competition of the Demon God clan's royal clan, it was naturally impossible for Kang Xinmu to use the Dragon God clan's inheritance. It wasn't that he was forbidden to transform into a dragon god, but once he used the Dragon God clan's inheritance, he would naturally be disqualified. On the surface, they were praising Kang Xinmu's Dragon God clan's inheritance for being strong. In reality, they were mocking his Demon God clan's inheritance for being too weak. He was only a level 2 super demon god, and he dared to participate in the ranking competition of the Demon God clan's royal clan. Wasn't this a joke? The Su royal clan and the Tuoba royal clan are finally facing off. Other than the Tuoba royal clan, there were still many people paying attention to the bet between the two clans. That included the Li Tian clan. After all, the bet included 2 sacred items. If the Su royal clan won, the Su royal clan would obtain 2 sacred items. Then the Su royal clan's strength would greatly increase. Although the impact on the whole would not be too great. But, the battle of strength between the Demon God clan's royal clan was built up from the accumulation of small details. Therefore, they could not bear to see the Su royal clan take first place. This is the first direct confrontation between the Su royal clan and the Tuoba royal clan. It's a pity that even Kong Shinmu can't see the Su royal clan's strength. Is there still a need to see? In this generation of the Su royal clan, only Su Tianhao is worth a look. Now that Su Tianhao has been defeated, who else has hope to take first place? Don't tell me it's because of this Kong Shinmu. Ha ha ha. The people from the Li Tian clan were even more direct with their words. They did not give Kong Shinmu any face at all. Although they were only chatting within their own clan, even if there were outsiders present, they would still speak the same way. This was the Li Tian clan. And within the Su royal clan, many people were already filled with righteous indignation. Why is it Kong Shinmu versus Tuoba Zhantian? If it were me, I would definitely defeat Tuoba Zhantian in 3 moves. Su Gui gritted his teeth and shouted. After Su Tianhao's defeat, Su Gui felt that among all the participants of the Su royal clan, his strength was at least in the top 3. Against Tuoba Zhantian, it was more than enough. However, Chapter 55-15. Kong Shinmu went up to the arena. He ignored everyone's words and went to the center of the arena. He and Tuoba Zhantian would be the first match of this round. Everyone was waiting to see this match. But most people didn't think there was any suspense in this match. Most people were pointing at the center, talking and laughing. They even began to discuss how many moves Tuoba Zhantian would need to defeat Kong Shinmu. Brother Jiang will definitely be fine. Su Yi was confident in Kong Shinmu. Although she wasn't sure what level Kong Shinmu had reached in the inheritance of the Demon God clan, she had enough confidence in Kong Shinmu. No matter what, she believed in Kong Shinmu. Su Yi was a little worried about Kong Shinmu. After all, Tuoba Zhantian was still very strong. Level 5 Super Demon God, with such cultivation and realm, couldn't be defeated easily. He was the most elite of the young generation of the Tuoba royal family. Although Su Yi didn't know how strong Kong Shinmu was, she knew how to observe his body language. Just by looking at Su Er and Su Zhiyu's calm and composed expressions, she felt that there must be an inside story. Su Tianhao was defeated, but he was still so calm. It could only mean that among the remaining people, there was still a possibility of winning first place. The most likely one was undoubtedly Kong Shinmu. Only Su Yi and Su Yi, because they were close to Kong Shinmu and knew about Kong Shinmu's past, would have such confidence in Kong Shinmu. In the arena, Kong Shinmu had already transformed into the body of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. His eyes were cold, like the calmest demon god. Opposite him, Tuoba Zhantian didn't immediately transform into the body of a demon god. Instead, he looked at Kong Shinmu mockingly. Kong Shinmu, you are from the Dragon God clan. It's one thing for you to dominate the dragon gods, but now that you've come to our demon gods, you dare to be so arrogant? You're really seeking your own death. Arrogant? Kong Shinmu was speechless. He didn't seem to have said anything, did he? He didn't know how this guy saw through his arrogance. Kong Shinmu's demon god body looked down at Tuoba Zhantian in his human form. He narrowed his eyes and said, "The demon god race is filled with arrogant people like you?" What? What an arrogant and conceited man. Tuoba Zhantian's face darkened. He really didn't expect that Kong Shinmu would dare to mock him in his own territory. Simply audacious to the extreme. I want to see how you can be so arrogant in a while. Infuriated, Tuoba Zhantian activated the inheritance of the demon god race, the chaotic heavenly fire demon god. The inheritance of the Tuoba royal family was the chaotic heavenly fire demon god. This chaotic heavenly fire demon god, not to mention that Kong Shinmu had mastered its weakness. Even if they fought normally, Kong Shinmu would not be afraid of him. I'm only a second stage super demon god, but I should have no problem dealing with this Tuoba Zhantian. Kong Shinmu estimated his own combat strength. However, in this battle, he could almost break through to the third stage super demon god. He could break through after the battle. Seeing that his opponent had transformed into a chaotic heavenly fire demon god, Kang Shinmu's 16-winged demon god body charged straight at him. Demon Wings Tornado. The 16 wings on Kang Shinmu's back erupted with a terrifying demonic aura. With an invincible stance, it instantly enveloped Tuoba Zhantian's demon god body. For this devil wing tornado, he had directly unleashed his strongest level, the extreme saint realm. Previously, when he was fighting the full moon demon god, he had only used the heaven-grade demonic wing tornado, but now, when he used this demonic martial technique, the sky was filled with pitch-black demonic aura. It was like an endless black fog that shrouded the entire arena. From the 16 wings of his demon god body, a vast amount of demonic aura constantly surged out, forming a rolling demonic fog that crushed down. Tuoba Zhantian had originally thought that Kang Shinmu's strength was not that great. At least in terms of the demon god race, his strength was not that great. But now, he suddenly realized with a start that he was wrong, very wrong. This Kang Shinmu actually comprehended the demon wings tornado to the supreme sage realm. How long has it been? Astonishment appeared in the eyes of Tuoba Zhantian's chaotic heavenly fire demon god body. He had thought that Kang Shinmu had only comprehended it to the heaven level. He did not expect that he would directly comprehend it to the highest level, the supreme sage realm. Back when he fought Jin Luyue, he had gone easy on her. Had Jin Luyue been unable to defeat Kang Shinmu because of her injuries? That was not the case at all. This Kang Shinmu was very strong when it came to the demon god race's heritage. Tuoba Zhantian instantly stopped belittling Kang Shinmu, but he still did not believe that Kang Shinmu was his match. After all, their cultivation levels were 3 levels apart. From his point of view, this difference in cultivation levels was more terrifying than anything else. Very good, this is not considered bullying. Tuoba Zhantian's demon god body revealed a sinister smile. He raised his demon god arms as boundless surging flames seeped out of his demon god skin. It was as though a volcano had erupted in his body, causing churning magma to rush out of his body. Boundless skyfire condensed into a gigantic flaming pillar that surged towards Kang Shinmu's demon wings tornado. Chaos Heaven's explosive inferno pillar. With his angry roar, a total of 9 explosive inferno pillars shot out of his body, instantly dispersing the demonic aura of the demon wings tornado that Kang Shinmu had released. The billowing black demonic aura was blasted apart by the impact of the 9 explosive inferno pillars. In an instant it was as though there were 9 clashes in the arena. The forces of both sides converged in midair, clashed, and surged out. Tuoba Zhantian was indeed a 5th-level super demon god existence. Just a casual strike from him was enough to disperse the demon wings tornado of the supreme sage realm. The advantage that his cultivation level gave him was too great. If they were at the same cultivation level, Tuoba Zhantian would have been defeated in this clash. But at that moment, it looked like Kang Shinmu was being suppressed. After all, he had made the first move. As for Tuoba Zhantian's casual counterattack, he had repelled the demonic technique that he had cast first. As expected of a 5th-level demon god. He's very strong. Kang Shinmu's expression sank. He could sense Tuoba Zhantian's immense strength. It was the strongest of the younger generation of the demon gods he had ever encountered. Even compared with the most elite young generation of the dragon god clan, he was even more outstanding. After all, the Fiend Celestial race was ruled by the royal family. Every youth from the royal family had the best and the most cultivation resources. However, to Kang Shinmu, Tuoba Zhantian was not invincible.